All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian with you guys. Anna's still in New York. She's going to be on CNN tonight again at 10 o'clock Eastern with a number of interesting folks like Bakari Sellers. Was fiery yesterday, probably fiery today. This show is also going to be fiery. We're going to do a number of topics here. The normies are turning, and that is great news. I'm going to explain that in a little bit. And then on tonight's show, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes, Zohran Mamdani. So all our rowdy friends are here, at least the discussion of those folks talking to one another, etc. So big show ahead, and then Operation Joy at the end, which you guys are gonna love. All right, Casper, what's going on?
Well, we're going to begin today with a little bit of a discussion on what we can expect in 2028, because it does appear that some of the same old are planning to run on the Democratic side. And I have strong feelings about that, as I'm sure you do as well. So let's get into it, Jake.
I'm begging the Democratic establishment to just consider how much of a target-rich environment Gavin Newsom happens to be. Yes. Look at his leadership in the state of California.
That was from the panel discussion on CNN last night, where clearly I had strong opinions about Gavin Newsom and how, despite what the Democrats nationally think, locally here in California, anyone who lives in this state knows that Gavin Newsom's leadership has been pretty disastrous, which would make him a target-rich environment as the Democratic candidate in the 2028 presidential election. But make no mistake about it, Gavin Newsom is planning to run, and he's not even really hiding it. Take a look.
I'm looking forward to who presents themselves in 2028 and who meets that moment. And that's the question for the American people.
Is it fair to say after the 2026 midterms, you're going to give it serious thought?
Yeah, I'd be lying otherwise. I'd just be lying, and I can't do that.
I don't think anyone was under the impression that Newsom had given up his political aspirations. He's been eyeing the White House probably from the moment he was born. And that's clear in the way he's neglected his duties as the governor of California and has instead engaged in political campaigning for a presidential role. But Newsom isn't the only establishment Democrat who is in fact gearing up for a 2028 bid. If you could believe it, former Vice President Kamala Harris was not at all deterred by the experience of running for president not once but twice and losing not once but twice. Let's hear a little bit from her.
In terms then of what is next for you, you write very powerfully about the differences that many women have made to your life, whether that was your meeting with Angela Merkel or the experience of growing up with your extraordinary mother or the stories of your baby nieces, Amara and Leela. When are they going to see a woman in charge in the White House?
In their lifetime, for sure.
Could it be you?
Possibly.
Have you made a decision yet?
No, I have not.
But what do Democratic voters think about that? Well, Harris weighs in on that issue as well. Take a look.
In my experience interviewing politicians, when someone says I'm not done, it means they are thinking seriously about running. But when you look at the bookies' odds, they put you as an outsider, even behind Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I mean, is that underestimating you?
I think there are all kinds of polls that will tell you a variety of things. I've never listened to polls. If I listened to polls, I would have not run for my first office or my second office. And I certainly wouldn't be sitting here in this interview.
What do you think about that, Cenk? Kamala Harris essentially pouring cold water on the polls. She doesn't like to pay attention to the polls. What are your thoughts?
I think she's right. If she had paid attention to the polls, she wouldn't be sitting there. She'd be sitting in the White House. Instead, when the polls told her, hey, stop bragging about all the corporate CEOs backing your campaign, she wouldn't listen. When the polls showed, hey, stop bear hugging Liz and Dick Cheney, they're sitting at 9% and 13% popularity, she wouldn't listen. No matter what the polls said, she wouldn't listen. Biden wouldn't listen. Biden, you're in the mid-30s. No incumbent has ever won in the 40s, let alone the 30s. What are you doing? Nope, I don't listen to polls. I don't listen. That's basically saying, I don't listen to the American people. I don't care what they think at all. Democratic voters, who cares? I got anointed, and I'm going to get anointed again. Well, this time around, nobody's going to get anointed. So I think she's going to have a rude awakening there. And like in the past, if you were the earlier Democratic candidate, Anna, there was this fawning from the media, and you saw a little bit of that in that interview. Oh, tell us about your brave mother and daughter and how it's got to be a woman. No. Tell me about how the policies will affect women. That's relevant. Don't tell me, oh no, you have to vote for someone because they're a woman and they had a nice mother and daughter. We all have nice mothers and daughters, I hope. So that's not relevant to any of this. And it looks like they haven't learned it all. To be fair to Gavin, he's at least being honest, because normally cheesy politicians go, oh no, I would never think of any office but the one I'm currently holding on. Oh, further ambitions. It's never once crossed my mind. And I'm like, oh, come on, guys, come on. Can we just get past it? So here, definitely Gavin and partly Kamala seem to have gotten past it, where they're like, yeah, of course I'm thinking of running for president. What else would I do? That makes sense.
What's amazing to me is while they might have these lofty goals because they want that position of power, have they reflected on their own political leadership? I mean, it's just more so Gavin Newsom, to be honest with you, because Gavin Newsom has an incredibly important role as governor of California. And under his leadership, I mean, the state has squandered $24 billion in taxpayer money that was meant to help the homeless. That money gone, okay? We're still doing audits trying to figure out where it is. Homelessness has exploded in the state. It hasn't gotten better. On top of that, he has all sorts of corporate donors, including the utility companies here in the state, which he did favors for, bailed out, even though they refused to upgrade and update their over 100-year-old equipment, which keeps falling onto dry brush and causing devastating wildfires. I don't know if you know this, Cenk, but the state currently owes the federal government more than $20 billion because of the way we handled the unemployment funds that the federal government gave us during the COVID pandemic. So remember, there were they bolstered the unemployment funds on a federal level. So during COVID, when these shutdowns happened, people who were forced to stay home would be made whole. Well, it turns out that there was so much fraud, there was very little oversight of that money, and that fraud amounted to $55 billion. That's billion with a B, okay? And now we have about 20 billion left to pay back to the federal government. And we keep missing the deadline to pay that money. So all of the businesses that operate in the state of California, whether they're big corporations or small businesses, now have to pay a per employee payroll tax or a penalty in order to get that money paid back as soon as possible. So think about the high taxes in this state. Think about how little we get for that money. Think about how much of our resources have been squandered under the leadership of Gavin Newsom. And then on top of that, on top of all those expensive business taxes and taxes for ordinary American workers in the state, now these small businesses are forced to pay an additional payroll tax per employee to make up that massive debt that we owe to the federal government, because Gavin Newsom and the political leadership in the state couldn't be bothered to do the proper oversight to ensure that that money didn't go to fraudsters. So I know I'm going on and on and on, but I have endless complaints about Gavin Newsom. And the reason why I was begging that panel, and more importantly, Neera Tanden, who was on that panel, to take into account how poorly he led the state of California, is because he is a target-rich environment. And so we're gonna make it all the way to the 2028 presidential election. Gavin Newsom is a snake oil salesman, and people love appearances, and they think he looks young and he looks like a politician. He's got the slick back hair. He's probably gonna win the nomination, and he is going to be politically destroyed because he is a target-rich environment. So that's my take on it. I know there's people in the audience who don't care. They just want, a messiah or someone to save them in the Democratic Party. Anyone who can beat these Republicans. And I understand the urge to want someone who can beat the Republicans. But at the same time, right now is when the vetting should happen. Right now is when we should be asking ourselves the difficult questions in regard to who is the best Democratic candidate to go up against the Republicans. And my opinion is Gavin Newsom ain't it. What do you think, Cenk?
Yeah, so I have a more complicated calculus on California. And so I think this is a great state. I think we have paid family leave that most of the country doesn't have. We have higher minimum wage, which has driven up wages, which, by the way, has not hurt our economy. And we, even with a very high minimum wage, we're still the richest state by a lot. So there's a lot of good things in California. And then there are the issues that you brought up, which are also true. So two things can be true at the same time. Look, I don't think a lot of people are looking for a messiah in this audience. I was just reading through the comments of the members. They largely agree with you, Anna. And so at some point, we are gonna need someone to win, right? And so you can call that a messiah, you can call it a candidate, but you need someone to actually deliver, right? And if it turns out that no one steps up who isn't a corporate candidate and or hasn't changed or whatever, and no one delivers, yeah, then I think it's a death knell for the Democratic Party. But that's why I think it's so monumentally important to pick the right person in this primary. I think there's really good news that the primary is basically starting now, because we need as long as we can to vet folks, to hear them out in interviews, and to be fair to Gavin and now all of a sudden Kamala Harris, who's apparently zeal to converted a little tiny bit. They are finally doing interviews. Like, not Gavin, Gavin's been doing interviews throughout, but Kamala Harris like, oh right, interviews, free media. I don't know why I missed that earlier. Could have helped earlier, right? When she was in the middle of that campaign. So I like that they're out there. Although ironically, as we're gonna see in the polling here, one of the guys who dips his toe in, but is not in media as much these days, is doing really well. We'll get to that in a second. Last thing is, in those panels, Anna, on CNN, you throw them for such a loop because they're expecting you to be in a box. And they're like, okay, here's the right winger, here's the left winger. Okay, now you guys fight over partisan brain, right? And the others are exact on that panel last night were 200% partisan brain. Republicans are great and everything. I mean, the same thing you were saying, the opposite of what you were saying just like a couple of years ago when Biden was in charge. It's maddening, and the Democrats flipped to the other side. You're the only one who's staying consistent and saying things that are true, so it's refreshing. So let's take a look at the polling and see who's leading now and give our thoughts on that.
So Semaphore revealed a new poll that was conducted by a group called Welcome. They describe themselves as center left. So this is coming from a polling agency that has a political bent. And according to Welcome's polling, Democratic voters are looking for a candidate who supports economic populism with moderate stances on issues like crime, immigration, and identity politics. Which I could have told you, I don't know, a few years ago. Actually, I was telling people a few years ago, but that made me a TERF apparently. But nonetheless, Welcome conducted the survey over 6 months and contacted hundreds of thousands of voters. The organization was originally created by a political action committee, but later formed a research organization for polls like the one that we're about to explain. So here are the results of the polls that they've conducted. According to Welcome, here's what Democrats absolutely want to avoid: a pivot to corporate centrism and the pursuit of progressive ideology purity. I mean, already, I totally agree with this. This doesn't surprise me at all, but there's more. So Welcome states that Democrats have focused far too much on highly educated and affluent voters. Meanwhile, according to Welcome, 70% of voters think the Democratic Party is out of touch. So that kind of plays into the elitism criticism that the Democratic establishment has been getting for multiple election cycles now. Most voters, the group found, believe the party over prioritizes issues like protecting the rights of LGBTQ plus Americans and fighting climate change, while not caring about securing the border or lowering the rate of crime. It turns out that people are concerned about things like public safety. That is very shocking, isn't it? They also need to fight for working class Americans, according to what their poll results found. The report reads, quote, "We have much to learn from the relentless focus of Bernie Sanders, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Zohran Mamdani on the topics of economic opportunity and lower cost of living." So I feel like I'm just kind of relaying obvious information to you all, so I apologize if you're bored. But I do think that there are some who need to hear this message. It's really important if the Democrats want to start winning elections again.
Yeah, so we've got a poll up on TYT.com. If you're forced to vote now in the Democratic primary, and these were your only choice, who would you vote for? Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, Pete Buttigieg, or AOC. Now, we didn't put Ro Khanna or Jon Stewart or any of the other folks that we like in that poll because it would have made it a little bit easier. What we want is your real opinion among those choices. And it might still be easy for you guys. It might be very easy, but I don't know. I'm curious. That's why I wanted to find out. Buttigieg is doing well in a recent poll that came out where they compared those candidates. Now, part of the reason for that is mainstream media restricts your choices, right? So they don't often put Ro Khanna in the polls. Sometimes they do, but they also don't often cover him as a potential presidential candidate, Democratic leader. They're not terrible to him. It's actually much better than it used to be. But overall, like Jon Stewart's never in any of the polls. I get it. He hasn't announced. He hasn't done anything. He, by all accounts, doesn't want to run, etc. Right? So I'm not overly blaming them for that. But the way that mainstream media thinks is, no, it has to be a corporate Democrat. So I'm going to give you a bunch of choices, corporate Democrats, and then I'll throw in AOC, who's like establishment-y on culture wars, but not as much on others. And obviously she's winning in our audience. The voting just got started. That's not so overly surprising, but that she's head and shoulders at least above the other corporate Democrats. But like the idea that the media is going to push is not what are the choices you have among 330 million people, but what are the choices you have between Buttigieg, Kamala Harris, and Gavin Newsom? And so be wary of that trap that the media is setting for you right now. Okay, now to the substance of the poll that Anna quoted about the policies. I mean, look, guys, there's no way to avoid saying, sorry, but we were totally right? And so look, that should matter. Forget everyone else, forget the other shows, forget other folks. I'm just saying for you guys in the audience, it should matter who's right and not, right? So if you listen to the wrong show, you're gonna back the wrong people, and you're gonna back the wrong ideas, and we're gonna go nowhere. We're gonna spin our wheels, right? So what did we tell you guys? You all know it. It was pretty spectacular, right? The way that we were attacked for saying things that were, to me and Anna, obviously true. We said, look, we got to go towards economic populism, the Bernie Sanders message from 2016. And if you go towards corporate centrism, that's a disastrous idea. That's the idea we dislike the most. And the polling indicates that perfectly, right? Then you go to the other side. But we said that doesn't mean that we're just on a left-right political spectrum and that no matter what, you should go max left. But don't go max left and pretend there's no crime when people are pissed about crime. Don't pretend that there's no problem at the border when there's obviously a problem at the border. And these identity politics and the culture wars are not helping us. It's gone too far. I know the Republicans set a trap, but don't fall into the trap. And the polling indicates every single thing we said was true. So okay, it's not about personalities, guys. So if you say, yeah, I don't really care. I don't care that you were right. I just care that those ideas were right. Perfect, beautiful, yes. Who cares about who said it? The point is, make sure you don't get off that path because the mainstream media is gonna try to veer you off to right-wing economic corporate establishment ideas. Oh, make sure you pick Buttigieg. Buttigieg is gonna give you a perfect sense of what the donors want and the donors will be so happy. No. You're definitely gonna lose if you go in that direction. And if you go, well, okay, we're gonna be left and we're gonna stand for everything and we're gonna be max. And okay, the next president has to be a Muslim, queer, black woman. No, what are you doing? I know that's an absurd example. No one actually says that, right? But there are plenty of people who say you shouldn't call someone a woman. And that was insane. And we were attacked for saying the most logical, reasonable things that now all of the polling and all the electoral results have confirmed.
Just take care of people's actual needs. It's that simple, right?
Yes.
People are suffering and no one is actually addressing the causes of their suffering. So address that. Okay, and then we can do language policing when we live in a utopia where everyone's needs are met. But we're nowhere near that right now. So let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about, Zohran Mamdani, because there was a pretty vicious smear against him on CNN's panel last night. And I attempted to correct that smear. So we'll be right back.
All right, so first we're going to super chat. John Wick 1 game writes in, I'll run for president before voting for them, referring to the establishment Democrats. Rage Rock for now just sent in a little bit of money and just said, Anna, thumbs up. That's all. I like it, I appreciate it. Marty Mule, 1962 Martinez writes in the YouTube member section. Anna, you killed it on her take this morning's episode. I don't know how you could sit on a panel with people who still think it's okay to kill children. I take my hat off to you, great job. Yeah, I think she did a great job there too. And it's hard not to get super frustrated by the Israeli propagandists who are just still spewing utter nonsense. And with such arrogance, it's infuriating.
Hold on, I got to comment on that real quick.
Yeah.
I had to step away. Yeah, look, there was a lot of drama about Emily Austin, and I pushed back on even having her on the show. And in fact, even considered maybe just quitting altogether, but I'm glad I didn't. Because I mean, I wanted to like tell her what I actually thought as she was spewing propaganda and lies. And it is what it is. But I didn't want to run away from the situation, but it did bother me that someone who is suspected of being paid by Israel to spew propaganda in support of Israel here in the United States was invited. And I thought that took away any credibility from the show, because why are we inviting propagandists to cover the news with us? It's ridiculous. But you know what? I think it ended up being fine. And as annoying as the lies are, at least I have an opportunity to push back against them. So thank you for the comment.
Yeah, and look, a lot of folks would say, hey, I don't want you doing outside shows, you're a Young Turks host, etc. But I love having Anna on her take and CNN and all these other places, and Piers Morgan and so many others, because she's such an effective communicator for our position. And it's nearly impossible to debate her. So without her, Emily Austin would have run roughshod in that panel. And instead, I think she got her ass handed to her, which is often what happens
also,
when you take on Anna. Yeah.
I can't believe I'm saying this because of how we kind of started off. But if you guys don't mind, if you watched the show and you liked what you saw, please show Lindy Lee a little bit of love. I know some of you might have bad feelings toward her, but she's really evolved on that issue in particular. And I think she did a great job essentially tag teaming when it came to dismantling Emily Austin's lies. So I really want to commend her for that and give people a chance. People have the ability and sometimes willingness to evolve on issues. And Lindy certainly has on this particular issue.
I mean, honestly, the way that you flipped her on Israel was stunning, stunning. I couldn't believe how she was been, saying all the right things. And she said it to Emily Austin in that version too. Anyway, tyt.com/press. You'll get all the outside appearances, almost all the outside appearances of myself and Anna and the other hosts on there. Rashad was recently on Piers Morgan as well. Check that out. Simon Moody writes in, I'm honestly not sure how to rank Gavin, Pete, and Kamala from worst to hair on fire. They're all awful candidates. Trisha Briggs says, dear God, not Kamala. Smoke These Two says, Anna's stunning as usual. A Tropy writes in, Anna about to single-handedly save the country from a Newsom nightmare. As a Californian for 30 years, I'm grateful. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. More news.
Well, yesterday when I was on Abby Phillips's show on CNN, I had the displeasure of sitting next to someone who is not living in the same universe that we're living in. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, here's a little taste.
What Zohran is doing, this is a guy who's spoken vile about Jews, vile about the NYPD. It is true.
What did he say about Jews? What did he say?
From the river to the sea.
Oh, please.
Vile. Zohran Mamdani said vile things about the Jews. Okay, what did he say? From the river to the sea. Which, by the way, Zohran Mamdani actually has never said that. Just because Andrew Cuomo, his political opponent, said that he said that on a debate stage doesn't mean that Zohran Mamdani has actually said it. But even if he had said it, even if he had, I wouldn't really care much. Now, why is that? Well, I explained in the next clip. Take a look.
The Lagoon's charter literally says that they're going to pursue the Greater Israel Project and literally steal land from all these Middle Eastern countries.
This is why you have rabbis telling their congregations to vote for
This is the new Democratic Party policy. This is the
So, Cenk, the gentleman I was speaking to or shouting at is a former staffer for Byron Donalds and also a former White House spokesperson. His name is Harrison Fields. For those of you who are unfamiliar with him, I do have one more moment that I'll share with you. But before I do, I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts. First of all, his big get was from the river to the sea, which Mamdani has not said, as you point out.
Vile.
Number two, so he's literally has no evidence that Mamdani has been anti-Semitic 1%. Just made it up. And added vile. The imaginary fantasy I have about Mamdani is vile. Well, that's true. And by the way, they're viciously anti-Muslim against them, but they pretend that they care about bigotry. Secondly, I want to apologize to the people that I criticized for saying from the river to the sea. I said that early on, a year and a half ago or more. But I think I was wrong. The chant is from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. What's wrong with that chant? Why, should Palestine not be free? They're like, oh, it implies the murder of Jews. No, it doesn't. It just says the Palestinians should be free. Where does it say murder the Jews or anyone in Israel? You just made that up. Oh, well, it implies it because if you say from the river to the sea, that means you're going to take all that land. Oh, guess who else said from the river to the sea? Netanyahu. As he's in the middle of taking all that land and actually murdering the Palestinians and actually taking their land. So this chant is not Israel will be free, it's from the river to the sea, I'm gonna take all your land from the Israeli position. From the Palestinian position is, can you just let us go for a second? Jesus Christ, how long are you gonna keep 5.5 million people hostages? So no, all of it is Israeli propaganda. All of it is meant to get you to hate Muslims so that Israel can kill them and take their land and you could pay for it. Now remember, it's okay that you're paying for all of this because you're supposed to hate all Muslims, but I'm so concerned about bigotry. That's why I'm worried about anti-Semitism. All right, now, one more thing here, I can go on for hours, as you know, Anna. I just saw a poll today. Guess who's got the most Jewish voters, according to polling, in this New York mayoral race? Oh my God, it's Zohran Mamdani. And guess what percentage of Jewish voters Mamdani has under the age of 45? Okay, so young Jewish, but 45 is pretty, it's getting up there. So, all right, I mean, what is it, 33%? That'd be a huge number because I hear he's a vile anti-Semite. So obviously, almost no Jew would vote for him. So maybe 10%, 5%. You wanna know what the real number is? 67% of Jewish voters under the age of 45 are backing Mamdani. So there's no anti-Semitism.
67?
67.
I didn't even know. Yeah. I didn't even know it was that high.
He's winning in a landslide with Jewish voters under the age of 45. And with Jewish voters overall, he's the #1 candidate. He's easily beating Cuomo and Sliwa among Jewish voters in New York. Now, it's amazing that even you didn't know that, Anna. And why? Because mainstream media has been saying the exact opposite the entire time. Anti-Semite, the Jews hate him, he hates Jews. Oh, you remember everybody, hate the Muslim, hate the Muslim. I care about bigotry, okay? No, they're all liars, they're all liars.
Okay, but to your point, and guys, if you don't mind, please cue up the cold open because I want to play it one more time. It's not just that the Republican detractors are going after Zohran Mamdani with that smear. And to be sure, Harrison Fields is a Republican, of course, but pay close attention to the split screen because the other person you're gonna see is Neera Tanden, an animal or a creature of the Democratic establishment. And so what's amazing to me is that she appears to kind of give the affirmative, okay, as this smear is taking place. Take a look.
What Zohran is doing, this is a guy who's spoken vile about Jews, vile about the NYPD. It is true.
What did he say about Jews? What did he say?
From the river to the sea.
Oh, please.
Okay, so two things about that. I mean, you just see Neera Tanden's face. First, she starts off with like that disgusted look on her face because she's like, oh yeah, Republican, I gotta make the facial expression. But the second he says that Zohran Mamdani has said vile things about the Jews, she's like, oh yeah, that's a message I can totally co-sign onto. But the other thing is, Cenk, after he had said that Zohran Mamdani had said vile things about the Jews. And I asked him to name something specific. When he said from the river to the sea, I was shocked. I literally had a moment of shock because I'm like, that's what you're citing as the big, vile, anti-Jewish thing that he said. What? So it gets worse because he realized, oh, I guess that doesn't work. So let me pivot over to something entirely different to prove that Zohran Mamdani is in fact a hater of the Jewish people. So take a look at the next clip.
It is a rejection of the establishment. That's what it is. Because the establishment has not actually looked out for
anti-Semitic. That's what it is.
Fundamentally anti-Israel.
Please stop with this nonsense.
I get called a fascist every single day. I can call you an anti-Semitic because it's exactly what you are doing.
Hold on,
the Democratic Party has an anti-Semitic
why? Because he doesn't want to visit Israel as the mayor of New York City? Is that why?
He wants to arrest Bibi Netanyahu.
He should be arrested. He's a war criminal.
There you go. Modern day Democratic
Party. There you go. I'm right.
He wants to arrest Bibi Netanyahu. Yeah, and there's a warrant out for his what? Yeah, there's a warrant out for his arrest. He is a war criminal.
Yeah.
How is that hating the Jews? It's wanting someone who has committed war crimes to be held to account.
So guys, I can solve this mystery for you. It's the easiest thing in the world. So none of those people, whether they're corporate Democrats or corporate Republicans, and Anna, you're so right about Neartana's face. She's like, oh, I am against you, you're a Republican. Oh, Mamdani, anti-Semite. Where's the check? Where's the check? Where's the check? So the reason why they don't care about Jewish people at all, like that guy, the guy who worked for Byron Donalds, the African-American Republican, cares so much about Jews. And he's like, oh my God, I stay up all night worrying about Jewish voters. Hey, good news. Then you should back Mamdani because that's who the plurality of Jewish voters are backing. It's way more than Cuomo or Sliva. So it's clear. If you love Jews, you should back Mamdani. No, I hate Mamdani. Why? Because guys, come on, you know the Israeli lobby is funding 90% of Congress. That's a literal fact. And they fund a giant number of politicians, pundits, media figures, etc. So those people are not loyal to Jewish Americans. In fact, they are opposing the wishes of Jewish Americans. They are loyal to Israel and the money that is being funneled to them to do propaganda for Israel, not for Jewish Americans. So in this case, it's crystal clear. So this clown of all clowns is saying that 67% of Jewish voters under the age of 45 in New York, which is a giant number, by the way. New York is the second most Jewish city in the world, okay? So it used to be #1 for a long time. So, and that's why it's driving AIPAC and the Israeli lobby crazy. They're like, no, you're gonna ruin our biggest talking point, that anyone who criticizes Israel is an anti-Semite, and then we cancel that when we ruin their lives. Please, Jewish Americans, help us do this propaganda on behalf of Israel. And Jewish Americans are like, no, we don't want to. We want lower housing prices in New York because we live in New York. We want lower prices in New York because we live in New York. And I'm not your goddamn uncle, right? So, but this guy, Fields or whatever his name is, goes, no, 67% of Jewish voters under the age of 45 in New York are anti-Semites because they're backing Mamdani. Well, okay, I mean, if you're gonna be absurd, thank you. We appreciate it. You're at least advertising that you obviously work for Israel and you don't care about Jewish people at all.
Just some inside baseball after that segment ended. I was so heated that I kept going at it with him. And the panel was like, it was awkward for sure, for everybody except for me. I enjoyed every minute of it. But I basically told him, like, I never want to hear a conservative like you talk about the sanctity of the lives of unborn children, okay? Which they love to use when pushing their anti-abortion agenda. When you're totally okay with endless numbers of Palestinian children getting slaughtered by your precious Bibi. And he made some argument about how most people agree with me. Doubt it.
No, real quick. So Benjamin Netanyahu is despised here in America. The polling indicates that. Also, by the way, hated in Israel. But he's paying all these people. So since it's him funneling the money to these fake pundits whose job is to just support Israel, that's why he's like, he thinks he got you, Anna, because he's like, this is the modern Democratic Party. They would want to arrest a war criminal like Benjamin Netanyahu, hated by about 80% of Americans. The reason he thinks that, Anna, is because in the elite circles, they're almost all bought off by Israel. So they think, oh, Anna, you just helped me. You eliminated yourself. Now you can't get a paycheck. So he thinks he disqualified you. He doesn't care that 80% of Americans hate Netanyahu. He knows that among the elites, 98% of them work for Israel. So he's thinking, she did my work for me. She's eliminated. She's disqualified.
Yeah.
She wouldn't kiss Israel's ass. I win. Do you?
Well, yeah, enjoy your blood money, bitch. All right, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about, well, how the Democratic establishment is handling the ascent of Zohran Mamdani. There is one woman in particular who's calling out the Democratic establishment pretty aggressively, and I'm here for it. And then later in the show, we'll also talk a little bit about, well, Candace Owens, still on the story, still investigating Charlie Kirk's death. She is not buying the official narrative. We'll tell you what she has to say and more when we return.
All right. Lots of comments here at TYT.com. Disruptor post writes in, I've been getting spam with commercials for Israel. Last night one claimed it was pictures of Hamas murdering Palestinians, but it was nothing but a bunch of noise and blurred pictures. Another one was a Jewish guy and a Palestinian guy that are living in Jerusalem talking about how wonderful the Israelis and the Palestinians get along together. They're stepping up to Hezbollah big time. Hezbollah is my new favorite word. Yeah, they are. In fact, we have a story about that later in the show, so stick around. They're spending a ton of money to try to brainwash the American people and the people of the world. I'd say normally that was going to totally work, but because mainstream media is now almost defeated, it won't work. They'll be seen as the jackasses that they are. Oh yeah, the Palestinians love the Israelis because the Israelis have been so kind to them. I mean, who would be, if you're not being paid by Israel, you'd have to be the dumbest person in the world to believe that, right? I mean, they just slaughtered them right in front of our eyes. And the Hezbollah is that the Palestinians love Israel because Israel's so good. Come on, come on, come on. Dirge writes in, I wonder if there will be an episode of TYT that doesn't contain the phrase anti-Semite before the end of the year. You know, brother, I hope that there is, and I feel bad about it. Yeah, you're right. It's just over and over again. But the reason is because that's how they control so much of media and politics. Again, I don't mean Jewish Americans. In fact, it's driving Israel crazy that they can't control Jewish Americans. God, I love that so much. I love this country, and that's Jewish Americans standing up for this country, right? Anyways, but yeah, they're like, we already called them anti-Semites. It's already over. That's their magic word for we're gonna destroy your life because we're a bunch of thugs. I mean, I care so much. I care so much about the bigotry. Destroy the ones that won't stand for Israel. Bow to Israel. Yeah, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. Go ahead, say it. I don't care. Okay. I can't stand Israel's control over this country. Not the people, but the powerful. I can't stand it. Anyways, that's why it happens, brother. I try, but it is what it is. Anyway, Susie Greenberg writes in, TYT has helped me to be more open-minded to all ideas and not just blindly being loyal to the left. Atta girl, Susie, I love that you're open-minded. And there's nothing wrong with the left, but let's keep an open mind. Sometimes things are not in exactly the places that we thought they were. Susie also wrote and said, Cenk and Anna together, sigh, feels like home. Well, Susie, having you here feels like home. So love you guys. Don't shoot on the goalkeeper says, for what it's worth, Anna, I don't think you're a TERF at all. Birthing person is a weird term, and as a trans man, I hate it. It's weird and reduces people to nothing but their parts. Brother, that's exactly what I think. Why are we just classifying women as their body parts? That's going backwards. It's crazy. Anyways, wonderful that you're here as you are every day. Pessimistic Progressive says, what about all the mothers and daughters in Gaza? Do they matter to Kamala? Just don't ask her that. Just Jim says, may I ask a question? Newsom won by 20 points, then how's he a liability in 2028? Jim, that's why I think it's a little bit more complicated. I think that there's good parts of California that Gavin Newsom can run on. There's downsides that Anna points out. It's definitely not clear cut to me how that one plays out. And not in terms of who I think should win, but in terms of who might win. Art Guy says, Anna's amazing work on CNN is undoubtedly grueling, but it's moving the needle for mainstream audiences too damn strong. Totally agree with that. Guam will capsize Dragon says, whoever tosses their hat into the ring better do it now. 3-year campaign, agree with that. Jenks Left Tricep says, Anna needs to just get her own office at CNN. I'm worried about it. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Anna, and Ferris Faizi. Ferris, thanks for joining by hitting the join button below on YouTube. We appreciate you. TYT.com/join is another great way to support the show, and we appreciate it and we need it. You guys are amazing for doing that for us. Jeffrey Dottie writes in as a YouTube member, I love Anna going on other shows because it gets our message out there. Totally agree, and that's why we do it. One more programming note. Yesterday I interviewed the founder and CEO of Chapter. That's one of our sponsors. I hope you got a chance to watch that. And look, I know they're a sponsor, but it was a really interesting conversation about Medicare and how you, the different plans under it, and what might happen to it next. Is it solvent, not solvent? Why it's in the kind of the mess that it's in now. So really interesting. As I said in an interview, we did a lot of research on this. And the brokerage business that helps you pick out the right Medicare plan for you is a bit of a disaster. Chapter's whole business idea was, why don't we be honest? Just hilarious that that's like their differentiation point in an industry where almost no one is honest. So, and it's confirmed by all the reporting, et cetera. So that's why we chose them as a sponsor. So Medicare enrollment goes through December 7th. So you got to act now. Your plans might have changed. And if you have the best plan, Chapter will just tell you. So then you'll have peace of mind that the plan didn't change and you have the best plan. Or they'll tell you a plan you can save a lot of money on. And on average, people save $1,100. That's 707 TYT help. 707 like the plane, TYT like us. Help, as in they're gonna help you. So it takes about 20 minutes, it's free, 707 TYT help. All right, Anna, what's next?
Why don't we get to our next story?
Stop missing out on these big rallies. Hakeem and Chuck should have been front and center introducing the next mayor of New York City, but no, they wouldn't show up because they're that are beholden to the same corporations that that helped Donald Trump get elected. And this is just an embarrassment.
More and more people are speaking out about their just exhaustion with Democratic leadership, their ineffectiveness. And Jennifer Welch, host of the I've Had It podcast, has certainly had it with Democratic leadership. She went scorched earth on Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer for essentially refusing to help rally the troops behind Zohran Mamdani, the mayoral candidate for New York City, ahead of the election that's set to take place. Now, he does appear poised to win nonetheless, but they were nowhere to be found at the 13,000 person Mamdani rally in New York last week, which did feature Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders. Now, Hakeem Jeffries proved her point yet again just last night. The minority leader finally offered a tepid endorsement of Mamdani last week, which Schumer still has yet to do, by the way. But when asked last night why he decided to endorse now as opposed to earlier, Jeffries made sure to distance himself as much as possible from Zohran Mamdani, which seems like it's kind of a half-assed endorsement, but nonetheless, let's take a look.
Well, Zohran is a Democratic nominee, and there's alignment as it relates to the affordability crisis and the need to decisively deal with it. And of course, there's alignment around the existential threat that Donald Trump will bring to the city of New York. That said, I will continue to take positions that are important to the people that I'm privileged to represent in Brooklyn on racial justice, on social justice, on economic justice, and of course on foreign policy, particularly as it relates to the Middle East, which has been an issue of great interest to people, particularly over the last 2 years. I will always support Israel's right to exist as a Jewish and democratic state, an eternal homeland for the Jewish people.
So House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries more concerned about a foreign country as opposed to our own country. And that is the reason why he has decided to distance himself from Zohran Mamdani following his tepid endorsement. Cenk.
Yeah, so God, it was cathartic to listen to Jennifer Welsh say honestly what we've been saying on this show for 23 years straight. And we were piled on and hated and attacked for saying things that we thought were super obvious, but apparently they weren't obvious to a lot of people. And guys, that's why I get so mad at mainstream media. I mean, chapter 5 of my book, Justice Coming, is all about how corporate media is the most powerful weapon that corporate rule has, because it brainwashes everybody into thinking, no, everything's fine. These Democrats who are doing nothing for you are amazing. You guys should always listen to them and let them anoint your leaders, because they're such geniuses. And you guys remember, a lot of you that have been around for a long time with us, all the talk of how Nancy Pelosi was a master legislator and how I'd make fun of it. And Paul Krugman attacked me. Other mainstream media reporters said, how dare you? Nancy Pelosi's the greatest legislator. I was like, okay, but so what did she pass? Obamacare, when they had a super majority. And that's it in like 200 years of legislating. And the Lilly Ledbetter Act, right? So, but the reason why people didn't see it back then is because, unfortunately, I mean, it's fortunate for us, we're in media, I guess, but it's unfortunate for the country because the media is everything. And before, when we had mainstream media, which is a factory of lies, they would tell you that all the corporate Democrats, but also the corporate Republicans, were amazing. And the greatest thing of all was when they had bipartisan agreement. And oh my God, what did they agree on? War. War is beautiful. Of course we should do more war. What else did they agree on? Giving tax cuts for the rich. What beautiful bipartisan agreement. The whole thing has been a trick from day one. So now that mainstream media has lost its power, then people like Jennifer Welsh is waking up and going, wait a minute, what the hell have these Democratic leaders ever done for us? And they said they were such geniuses. They had it all figured out. Hillary was definitely gonna beat Trump. Trump had no chance. Kamala was definitely gonna beat Trump. But it turns out, no, they didn't know what they were doing all along. That's right. So this great awakening is happening. So now I've had a podcast, like one of my favorites. They're the ones who took on Cory Booker too. I mean, she's taken on AIPAC. I mean, this stuff was unimaginable before. And these are people that, look, I don't know their history and I would love to learn it, but it feels like that show is filled with folks who previously would have voted for Hillary in a primary, Joe Biden in a primary, and now have realized we've been had, we've been took. And it's a beautiful thing to see. Not because of who was right or wrong, but because they've come to the correct position. They're awake now. Now we could all join forces together and actually pick a candidate that we love. So in terms of Hakeem Jeffries, or as Charlemagne the God called him, AIPAC Shakur, which is such a great nickname for him. He's like, oh, I guess all my voters want Mamdani. God, let them, all right. I tried, donors, I'm sorry, donors, I'm so sorry. Okay, fine, I'll endorse Mamdani. But hey, everybody remember, I timed it. He spent like 60% of the time talking about how much he loved Israel as he was endorsing Mamdani. So he's like, but remember, oh my God, Israel's like the greatest country in the world, and we should always serve Israel. Israel's so great. I'm like, all right, dude, we got it, we know, man. Please stop embarrassing yourself. It's humiliating.
Well, I mean, look, it is humiliating for them because, look, if they really wanted to defeat Mamdani, then they would have an answer to the affordability crisis, right? A counter to what Mamdani is offering. But they were so busy, like firmly affixed inside the ass of Israel, that they didn't even give themselves an opportunity to address or consider how they would address the affordability crisis in New York City differently, right? What are the counter options here? And honestly, Andrew Cuomo had nothing, absolutely nothing. They just leaned into the smears about how Mamdani is so scary. Oh my God, that Muslim guy. Oh my God, he's an anti-Semite because he doesn't want to visit Israel. as a New York City mayor. Okay, and so the campaign against Mamdani was complete and utter horse crap. It was bad. It was really bad, and the American people weren't buying it because the American people are concerned about what's happening here. Okay, including the Jewish voters in New York City who overwhelmingly backed Mamdani over Andrew Cuomo. So look, you and I have very briefly kind of gone over some of the policies with Mamdani that we think might actually hurt him. You've talked a little bit about rent control. Rent control sounds good, but it ends up hindering the development of housing or the construction of new housing, which is desperately needed. That's like the main way. Increase the supply. That's the main way to lower prices. And honestly, I just think whether you're talking about Los Angeles County, where we have a lot of rent control units all across the county, that has played into the lack of development of new housing, right? So how is he going to address that? Either way, I think that this race has been, what's been absent from this race is a real discussion about Zohran Mamdani's actual policy proposals, because the Democratic establishment, along with other detractors of Mamdani's, have been hyper-focused on foreign policy, which really should play no role whatsoever in a local race for mayor.
Yeah, so look, I think it's now too late. They don't have enough time to turn around or to listen to the Young Turks and make ads out of it and stuff, so I can say it now. They should have focused on economics and crime. And so just as a matter of political strategy, not that I agree with them, but they should have said, oh, he's gonna drive up crime. He's gonna actually drive up housing prices because of rent control. And there you could actually make an argument, etc. But they couldn't help themselves because they have Israeliitis. So that's all they have in their brain. So they instead they went with Muslim, dirty Muslim, hate the Muz, right? And that's what they did 24/7. And Andrew Cuomo ran a 100% bigoted campaign. But like, it's disgusting, but at the same time, I was like, keep going, brother, keep going. Because that is super dumb campaign. So just saying, oh, remember Jews in New York, you're as racist as I am, right? He's a no good Muz. And now Jewish voters are like, no, the majority are gonna vote for Mamdani. So no, they're not as racist as you are, Andrew Cuomo. Sad day for you. You ran a terrible campaign. You never addressed the voters' concerns. Instead, you addressed, as always, your donors' concerns. Because your good donors are the most bigoted people in America. And they said, attack the Muslim and try to smear him. And it's a twofer. Number one, we'll try to win this race. They, pro-Israel groups spent $35 million against Mamdani for a mayoral race that has nothing to do with Israel. But they can't stomach the idea of a Muslim winning, a Israel supporting candidate winning. So they nuked him, and they got Cuomo to run a campaign that was all about Israel and all about hating Muslims. And it backfired spectacularly. We just got to finish strong here. So whatever disagreements I have with policy on Mamdani, oh my God, I'll take it just to rub it in the face of the Israeli supporters who think they had 100% control over this country. I love that it's driving them crazy, that they're like, oh my God, we couldn't buy the seat. We spent $35 million trying to buy it. Oh God damn it, we couldn't buy it. Good. It warms my heart that you couldn't buy that seat. And especially because it's Jewish Americans voting against you. Oh, that's the beauty of America.
Okay, I'm gonna skip ahead to C4 because I want to revisit Jennifer Welch's commentary here. And in this clip, she talks about what's gonna happen next.
So listen up, Democratic establishment. You can either jump on board with this or we're coming after you in the same way that we come after MAGA. Period. Stop taking AIPAC money. Go on an I'm sorry I took AIPAC money atonement tour if you want to stay in power.
Yummy in my tummy. Oh, I like that video so much. I might play it again, but Cenk, brief comments. Brief.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, look at this. They're not even stopping at the water's edge. They're going right over. Nobody's listening to mainstream media anymore. In the old days, nobody would have ever said that because your career would have been ruined overnight and they would have viciously slandered you, it would be over. By the way, new AIPAC strategy now, a couple of articles about it, where they're saying, okay, we're not gonna call it AIPAC anymore. We're going to direct all of our donors to give, but give under your personal name. So it just seems like, oh, golly gee, do we all support Israel? Oh, that's just a coincidence. Okay, you got caught. I love it.
I love it too. All right, I'm going to take our break a little early because when we come back, we have a monster segment about Candace Owens. She took a 1-week break and came back and is really diving into this Charlie Kirk assassination investigation. She is not buying the official narrative. So we'll get into all those details and more when we come back.
Every day, the Young Turks delivers 2 hours of solid, fact-based, timely news and progressive commentary on all the day's most important stories. We keep our viewers informed while also providing perspective and insight on the news we cover, so you understand not only what's happening, but also what's happening behind the scenes, the stories behind the stories.
We play musical chairs and put these children in one awful detention facility to the next. That's what's happening at the border.
The things that got him banned, he's still spreading. So presumably, I think it's reasonable to say that if you allow him back on the website, he's going to do it again.
Any legal voter that we deem not willing to vote for my side shouldn't vote because it'll replace me that's supposed to vote for my side. That's not how voting works. That's not how democracy works.
And while many people following today's political news can get discouraged about the direction of the nation and the world, that's not us. At TYT, we're genuinely optimistic about the future, and with good reason. Today, wide majorities of Americans agree with our progressive stances on issues ranging from healthcare and education to climate, immigration, and wages. The rising generation of young people are also overwhelmingly progressive in their political beliefs and policy objectives, and they're increasingly flexing their muscle as voters and activists to demand change from our elected officials. The traditional mainstream media is mostly AWOL. They, along with the government and many other cherished institutions, have been captured by corporate interests. Audiences sense that they're not getting the whole story or even the truth from once trusted outlets, whether broadcast and cable TV news networks or national newspapers and magazines. The antidote is the Young Turks. Unlike mainstream corporate outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma, and we don't carry water for the Republican or Democratic parties. So watch us Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific, and join the thousands of progressives around the globe who tune in every day for TYT's unmatched, award-winning content and see what it's like to experience a news organization that only answers to you.
Indisputable, exclusive, disputable, exclusive. We brought you this first. No other news agency has this video. No other news agency has this story.
Every week on Indisputable, we do original, exclusive, investigative reporting you'll find nowhere else.
Our reports have been viewed by millions. Hosted by Sean King, Ben Crump, Senator John Ossoff.
You, through your investigative reporting, unearthed very troubling allegations about specific forms of abuse and discrimination in the federal prison system.
We catching these cases on camera. Just imagine the things that we don't see.
Our groundbreaking investigations and exclusive interviews bring you the real voices no one else wants you to hear. We tell the stories.
Imagine a prison that is so racist, the corrections officers contact me. That is a life or death situation being created. A black woman who was driving for Uber was allegedly assaulted by a white male passenger. After we got involved, roughly 24 hours later, the police all of a sudden opened up an investigation. What was going through your mind when bullets were simply flying inside of your vehicle?
Honestly, I thought I was going to die.
Did these officers ever say that you fit the description of somebody they were looking for? Did they say that?
Never.
Okay, that means they lied.
And we want you to be part of our truth-telling movement. Send pictures and video of stories no one else is telling and a 1 or 2 paragraph summary of the story to Indisputable's exclusive tip line at indvideos@tyt.com.
If you have more information about what's happening at this particular facility, please let me know.
Together, we're challenging the system, and together, we're making a difference.
I have the entire background to this story, and it is going to make your blood boil.
Indisputable with Dr. Rashad Ritchie, unveiling the truth, empowering the people. Weekdays at 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Pacific.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys, the online news show. What do you got for us, Anna?
Well, let's switch gears a little bit. We're going to revisit the Middle East a little later in the show. But for now, I wanted to kind of get everyone's temperature on something that's been developing for a while now. And I don't really know how I feel about it, other than the fact that Candace Owens, who is a good friend of Charlie Kirk's, very clearly is, having a tough time with the fact that her friend was assassinated in such a disgusting, vicious and gruesome way. And so she's not buying the official narrative of who killed him and how he was killed. And so I want to jump into one of her latest episodes where she weighs in on this and kind of lists all the things that she found strange that she feels aren't really being addressed. Let's get into it.
I'm not going to stop talking about Charlie Kirk's death. In fact, instead of trying to make me shut up, you should do something else. I think your time would be better spent trying to stop the sun from rising. You'd have more success if you spent your time trying to stop the sun from rising than trying to get me to shut up about who killed Charlie Kirk. I want war with all of you. Okay, all of you. And there's a reason. I'm going to get to that reason in a little bit, but I want war with all of you. So write your articles, issue your statements, email the White House, reach out for comment, okay? Say whatever it is you want to say about me. I want war with all of you.
Whatever you might think about Candace Owens, I have to confess the statement of, I want war with all of you, I found appealing.
Oh,
that resonated with me. That sounds like something I would say, to be honest with you.
Are you kidding me? I invented war with all of you. So
you did.
I love it.
No, but in all seriousness, that doesn't mean I'm co-signing onto everything that Candace Owens is saying in this video or what she believes. What I am going to do, though, is defend the fact that Candace Owens is clearly hurting. I mean, I think it's the most obvious thing in the world. She's in pain over the fact that her close friend was assassinated in a vicious and gruesome way. We all saw it. And she is skeptical of the official investigation and narrative around this. Now, I don't know what to make of the investigation, other than the fact that I too feel that there are some weird things going on, some inconsistencies. And to be quite frank, I don't really trust Kash Patel, right? Like, I just don't, he just seems a bit incompetent to me. And so that's where my starting point is. Now, Candace Owens took a week off recently. She came back, and on her first show back, she kind of lists some of the things that she finds questionable. So she's drawing attention to footage that she found strange from the day that Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. So let's start with Charlie's chief of staff, who is a 24-year-old by the name of Mike McCoy. And he happens to be the son of Pastor Rob McCoy, who seems pretty offended that Candace Owens is asking questions about what really happened that day, who really killed Charlie Kirk. And Tyler Robinson, being the suspect here, she's not convinced by that. Were there other people involved? Like, she's asking questions. So for those who don't know anything about Rob McCoy, I certainly didn't. It turns out that Rob McCoy co-chairs the faith division of Kirk's Turning Point USA. And he said that Kirk was a friend to Candace and never spoke poorly of her, though he disagreed with her. He urged Owens to behave like Kirk, who he claims wouldn't have spread similar theories if, God forbid, this tragedy had been hers. And he also says, quote, "I only wish at this tragic time of mourning, she would be a friend to Charlie, that he was to her. He would never have treated Candace or her family in such a way had, God forbid, this tragedy been hers." Okay. The other thing that I'll just note is Candace Owens is on the record essentially saying the only person who can stop me from asking these questions and engaging in this, independent investigation is Charlie Kirk's wife. If she hits me up and tells me, I want you to stop, I will respect that. She's on the record saying that. So I just kind of want to make that clear. Now, Pastor McCoy's son, Mikey, is seen on a phone, like talking to someone on the phone immediately as Charlie Kirk gets shot. And that's what Candace Owens is going to weigh in on here. She finds this strange. Everyone pay close attention, because I'm curious what your thoughts are and whether you find this strange. Take a look.
Mikey's the chief of staff. And I'm watching, the minute Charlie was shot, he called me, says, Dad, Charlie's been shot in the neck. Please call every pastor and pray. I said, okay, son. He has wits about him. He was just directing. He had blood all over him.
He says Mikey had blood all over him, except Mikey did not have blood anywhere near him because Mikey was behind the tent when Charlie got shot. And Mikey, in less than a second, does something that I find to be quite strange. He puts his phone to his ear and he begins a conversation. So we decided to slow this clip down, and we're gonna watch this clip slow down so you can see that it is exactly 834 milliseconds from the time that you hear the shot. That is how long it takes. So when this clip was brought, there we go, we're tracking that.
Don't know what to make of it. I mean, I know what I would do if I heard a gunshot. I would run for my life. He seems pretty calm, casual, and he's on the phone. The question is, who is he talking to? Aside from that, I don't know what to make of this video. What are your thoughts, Jake?
Super strange. So look, I know the right wing can be conspiratorial. So like, and I'm not a guy who's gonna be like, oh, something happened, so the conspiracy must be true, right? No, but at the same time, we're gonna look at everything with an open mind. So do I know why he did that? Of course not. But do we have eyes? We have eyes. We saw what happened there. That was strange. Why is it strange? When someone you know is shot, there is usually one reaction, shock. And then that will split into two different reactions. One is run, the other is help, right? His reaction is very calm, get on the phone and walk away calmly as everyone else is screaming and running. Maybe he's the calmest man in America. Like, I don't know, you'd have to ask him, right? But was that a little different than what you would expect? Well, obviously it was. Maybe there's a good explanation for it, but it was definitely strange. And then there's the guys who were doing all the baseball signals. What were they about? Anna, when I first saw the clip of them doing all the signs right before Charlie gets shot, I was like, I thought it was gonna be something like this, and the guy was playing with his ear and you're interpreting it as a baseball sign or some sort of signal. And maybe there's a good reason why they're doing signals, but they were definitely doing signals right around Charlie before he was shot. So I don't have an answer for that. I mean, in the old days, we believed our government, and you would hope that the government would explain, oh, no, this is the communication system his security team had, et cetera, et cetera. But now we don't even trust the government.
Yeah, and remember, when they had first detained Tyler Robinson, the claim was that Tyler Robinson had turned himself in and confessed, but that's actually not true. The more recent reporting indicates that he is unwilling to cooperate. He's not answering any questions. He didn't plead guilty. So that's a little strange. But to your point about the hand motions, so the hand gestures were being done by Charlie Kirk's security detail. There could definitely be a reasonable explanation for that, right? Maybe the other security person was far away and that's how they communicate. I have no idea. But I don't think there's anything wrong with answering these questions. I do think there's something wrong if you try to pin a murder onto someone without any evidence whatsoever. But I haven't seen her do that. I haven't seen Candace do that. Now, some might argue there's innuendo, she's implying things, and I can see that argument. But honestly, I think that she is, with this particular case, trying to be as careful as she can. She doesn't believe the official narrative. But for anyone who's saying that she's like blaming a foreign country or blaming a specific person, I haven't seen her definitively blame anyone. In fact, she wants to know what actually happened, which is why she's continuing looking into this. And then there's the footage of a Turning Point USA staffer I think this is the strangest thing, personally. There's video of a Turning Point USA staffer immediately snatching surveillance footage from the camera directly behind Charlie after he gets shot. So let's take a look at that.
The camera guy, the one who takes down the camera, seeing him lingering alongside Charlie at the event flagged me as weird immediately. Okay? That's why I reached out when people saw him taking down the camera. I said, what is this? Why are you here? Literally, why are you standing next to Charlie? I've never at any college event ever in 6 years had that man standing next to me at an event, okay? And you know what, when I called him, things got pretty weird. He acknowledged that a lot of new stuff was happening on that day. And I inquired to him immediately about the subtle changes that I recognized. And the thing that struck me as wrong was that he lied to me. I don't know why he was lying to me, but a lot of the things that he said didn't make sense. And I'm gonna speak more thoroughly about what it was that he said, because obviously I recorded the phone call. And I asked him, again, like, what's the reason? What's the reason for taking down the cameras quickly? Why hasn't the footage been released? Let me see it. And he told me that he had spoken only to Erica and the feds that he had regarding the footage, that is. He specifically told me that, as I said earlier, that he had secured that footage because he wanted to prevent Erica, as I told you, from having to relive that moment. And then it made even less sense to me and appeared to me as a lie once I saw the footage on FaceTime, when I realized that there was no blood on Charlie. So it was the least traumatizing footage of all. Why be so secretive about it?
So a couple things to note here. She makes mention of the fact that she recorded the phone conversation with this gentleman. And I have no doubt that eventually she'll probably release audio of that. And she has also been releasing text exchanges that she had with Charlie Kirk prior to him being shot and killed, which we're going to get to in just a minute. But yeah, the immediate need to take that surveillance footage. Why was that the priority? What happened with that footage? I don't think there's anything wrong asking those questions. And more importantly, Cenk, we heard a lot about Tyler Robinson's motive, right? The motive was, well, Charlie Kirk spreads hatred, and Tyler Robinson allegedly had a roommate, a transgender individual who he had a relationship with or has a relationship with. It's weird because we aren't really hearing much about that anymore, right? And we're not hearing much about the investigation at all, other than what we're hearing from Candace Owens and her own, independent personal investigation into this. Like, when you really stop and think about it, Cenk, this is really scary stuff, because even if you don't agree with Charlie Kirk's politics, who cares? This was a public figure who weighed in on political issues, held public events, and was shot in the neck and killed in front of hundreds of people.
Yeah.
And we're not hearing anything about the investigation anymore. And I think that's strange.
Yeah, all right. So I have at least one conclusion. So first of all, do I know all these facts and I know that everybody's motivation? Of course not. How could you possibly know, right? So why did the guy take that footage down right away? Why was that his first instinct? If it was to preserve it for the police, that makes a lot of sense, right? If he said it was to make sure that people didn't see it because it would traumatize them, that makes no sense. You're gonna want as much evidence as possible from that crime scene. If you're taking footage away, that's super sus, right? Now, again, but I don't know that that's what he was doing, right? So I don't know what they were doing with the hand signs, etc. But the conclusion I have is, it is perfectly legitimate to ask questions. So our mainstream media has bullied us our whole lives. Don't you dare ask questions. That means you're a conspiracy theorist. What did you say? What did you say? Say 9/11 one more time. That's it. You're canceled. You're canceled forever. I'm not allowed to ask. Look, I don't believe in any kind of theory about 9/11, right? But I'm not allowed to ask, why was Mohammed Atta's passport just lying on the rubble when it was paper? That's the one thing that didn't burn, and a building across the street, World Trade Center 7, fell because the steel was so hot, it melted the steel even though it was across the street, right? But the passport didn't burn. I'm not saying I know the answer, but I know I'm allowed to ask that question. Look, Anna, it's been a long time, but one of our contributors, Michael Hastings, died under very strange circumstances. He died at 4:30 in the morning, speeding for no reason in a way that he's never done before, crashes into a tree, and his car explodes upon impact. So, and when I asked the question of, wait, do Mercedes normally explode upon impact? You happen to be driving a Mercedes that day. They were like, oh, you better not ask that question. Are you a conspiracy theorist? I'm like, I don't even know who I'd have a conspiracy against. I just know it's super strange. And I know that normally people's cars don't explode. That happens in the movies, it doesn't happen in real life. But Anna, remember, of course, he exposed a US general and got him fired, right? And then the media has this obsession with the public should never know anything and they should never ask any questions. So immediately they shut it down like, you better not say anything about Michael Hastings dying. Okay, and now they're doing the same thing with the Charlie Kirk thing. No, I reject it. I'm gonna say and ask any question I like. And by the way, Anna, I'll go further than you and say, yeah, I'm going to ask questions about Israel. He did not have a bunch of Norwegian donors. We see the text messages. So they said, Charlie's saying, the Jewish donors are putting, and that's his language, not my language, and I don't have that. I don't know what he's referring to, but he's saying they're putting a lot of pressure on me and I don't want it. And I'm, and there's indications that he's turning on Israel. And then all of a sudden this incredibly strange thing happens. Does that mean Israel did it? No, there's not nearly enough evidence. Not nearly enough. But when you tell me, yeah, rando shooters with this Khmer trans theory, right? Take only one shot and they're such professionals, they know they got him and they flee right away. They disassemble the rifle on this thing and then they get into the woods and reassemble it and conveniently engrave the bullets. This is why I'm doing it. And then send text messages saying, now remember, it was only me. Every part of this story is strange. If you're saying it's not strange, you're a weirdo. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I totally agree. One of the other things that I thought was incredibly strange was, so look, I am not a weapons expert, obviously, but I have listened to a number of podcasts with gun experts or whatever, and the weapon that he used, the shooter used, would basically, it would go further than simply piercing Charlie Kirk's neck and then killing him that way. I mean, it would go through his neck, basically. That's the argument that they're making, and that's just not what happened. And apparently, what was the name of the guy who works closely with Charlie Kirk again? His producer,
Mikey McCoy.
Sorry, I just blanked on. No. The producer guy who confirmed the previous set of messages that Candace Owens had released of Charlie Kirk. Whatever, Charlie Kirk's producer, who I'm forgetting the name of at the most inopportune moment ever. He had said something about how the doctors had said that, it was a miracle. Like Charlie Kirk just had a neck of steel, which is why the bullet didn't go through. Which, I'm sure that Charlie Kirk doesn't have a special neck that would prevent a bullet from that type of weapon. From Andrew Colvett, please look up his comments on this because I thought his comments were insane on how the weapon didn't do to Charlie Kirk what it would do to most people. Now, the final thing I'll get to is Candace Owens has been, releasing some of the text exchanges that she had with Charlie Kirk. This one that she just released is actually from April of 2018. So these weren't messages from weeks prior. It was literally messages from years prior. But she felt the need to share it because he had predicted that he was going to die an early death. Take a look.
Here's what he wrote. We were again talking about Kanye. Charlie wrote to me, "You're going to be the Iron Lady of America." He had such a political vision for me. I never wanted that sort of a thing. I see it so freaking clearly. I might be Moses, though. I might not see this whole thing through. LMAO. If that is the case, be my David. I said, dude, you haven't even realized your power yet. You're so young, was what I was thinking. He said, if I tell you the true prophecy that I know in my gut, it's really sad, but I hope it's wrong. He went on to say, anyway, I am not sure if I will live to see the end of this revolution. I believe you were the piece that God meant me to meet that will finish the fight. Since the beginning of TPUSA, I knew in my gut that I might get wiped out at any time. I cannot explain it, but I dream about it all the time, like all the time. Anyway, that's depressing combo for another time, LMAO. I said, that's weird, more of a fear manifestation than an actualization. He said, I'm not really afraid of it, but I'm just telling you what I know to be true. And he told me that. He told me that. I don't know why. Charlie knew he was going to die young.
So I don't think that that's necessarily a sign of anything. Again, the messages were from April of 2018. When she reads his message in which he says, I dream about it all the time. It's not that he's like, ooh, I dream about being killed. He's having dreams that he's going to die early. So do with that what you will. I don't think that's evidence of anything, to be clear. But she is asking questions about things that she finds strange about the day of Charlie Kirk's assassination, what is seen on video, and some of the inconsistencies in regard to what we're hearing from, the FBI investigating this.
Yeah. So my last 2 points are: look, maybe he knew something we didn't know. Maybe he had a reason to be concerned that he didn't share with other people, because that is a very strange thing to say, right? So no, we don't know. No one piece of evidence doesn't prove anything. In fact, all of this evidence together doesn't necessarily prove anything, but it is worth asking questions. And so that leads me to my final point, which is that we better have a spectacular trial of Tyler Robinson, and he better not die in custody. Because if he dies in custody, then it's the US government, period. So maybe they're in cahoots with another government, I don't know. But don't tell me you have specially engraved bullets that are the most convenient things in the world. This guy looks like he's the most professional hitman that's ever happened. And then you tell me that you have all this super convenient evidence of his text saying, it is only me, do not look for anyone else. Of course, I cared so much about that rifle, that is why I put it back in the woods. I mean, all this stuff. And then if he shows up dead, no, it's definitely some government, and that is involved with our government. There's no question about it. If he shows up to trial and they have all the evidence and it's him and it really was because he was so moved by his trans roommate or etc., and they prove it in court, great, then all the mysteries will be solved.
Yep, we're just gonna have to wait and see. Absolutely. All right, when we come back, Tucker Carlson speaks to Nick Fuentes, and if you're wondering why would anyone speak to Nick Fuentes, he's been growing significantly in popularity over the last 2 years. And if you think ignoring it will make it go away, that hasn't worked. So we'll get into what they talked about and more when we return.
All right, back on TYT. Let's go to Super Chat. So Michael Cotavelli says, just want to correct the record. Mamdani isn't calling for rent control. He plans on freezing rent for rent stabilized units. His plan also calls for public sector investment into building over 200,000 units. So look, brother, you're right to emphasize the building of more units. That's more important. I've clarified a lot of times that no, he's not instituting new rent control. He's just saying we should freeze the rent on the apartments that already have rent control. But I still think that that's not a great idea. Building the units is a much better idea. So it's a mixed bag. That's why I can't go along with everything Mamdani's saying, but he has plenty of good ideas, and I love that he has new ideas. But I always appreciate people being more specific in correcting the record. So Make It Make Sense says, Kasparian and Khanna 2028, it would be epic. Seriously, a unified principal ticket right out of the gate, and tell me who would be better to debate all career politicians than Anna. As a conservative, Anna and Roe would have my vote. That would be a very interesting ticket. And of course, mainstream media would be like, oh, that's ridiculous, how dare you? You're not even a beloved politician. It must be a beloved, proven, experienced, corrupt politician. It must be. So that's how they'll react to Jon Stewart or Anna or anyone else. But at least Jon Stewart's more of a celebrity, so they'll make the mistake of having a soft spot for him just long enough. Anyways, Nickmon55 says, Cenk is right. I didn't read the rest of the message, but I like it so far. I've had a podcast is great. I've even gotten some of my older relatives into it because they can't only hear me complaining about Democrats, and it's weaning them off of mainstream. All right, that's great to hear. I love that. And look, when there are other shows that are doing great work, I love it. I love it. I'm not the guy who's competitive with other shows. Oh my God, I want to tear them down. No, I want to build them up. Give me more of that. So that's fantastic. And Anthony Gooden says, hashtag send Anna, put it on a shirt. She's my hero. Happy to know that heroes still exist. That is super sweet.
Come on. That is very sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I like hashtag send Anna. Yeah.
But I don't want people thinking I'm a hero. Like
Yeah.
Human beings disappoint, and I don't want to disappoint people. So yeah, I'm just saying.
No. Yeah, believe me, they know we can disappoint them. They're aware of that. Okay, believe me, they know we're human. Yes. So Drew Wilson writes in, Democrats need to focus on midterms first. 2026 is coming and the party still doesn't have a cohesive message for what they represent. And if 2028 comes around and Trump isn't running again, then Trump bad won't work. Drew, you're absolutely right. The reason why they don't have a cohesive message or any message is because they're waiting for the donors and the consultants to give them the message. That's exactly what's wrong with Democratic leadership. That's why the only message they had was like, no, not Mamdani, I hate all Muslims. That's not a message, what is that? And why are you attacking your own when you should be going in the other direction? Kaisky says, I've been watching TV these days since Donald Trump was banned. I don't know what that part means, but he continues, TYT has stayed consistent, and when the message was wrong, they reevaluate and correct themselves publicly. You guys stay legit, keep it up. Well, thank you, appreciate it. Rose Turner says, I hate to admit this, but this is the form of power we have right now. It's actually producing results that they can't ignore. If they put another corporate Democrat in the running, I'm not voting. So a lot of people have that and we're worried about it. Jamilo says, so refreshing to hear someone on mainstream media call out these lies in real time. Anna's on fire now. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. And also Amelia W, thank you for joining through the join button on YouTube. And Abigail Rose, especially at the premium level, really appreciate it. Makes a big difference to us. You can also upgrade through the join button. And then the one other way to help, of course, there's so many ways to help. You can just share this stream, you can share videos, so many free things you can do, like, etc. Check us out on Substack, where we've got a good platform now. But of course, whether it's a donation or a membership, or annual membership gets you a couple of months off. TYT.com/join is the best way to go. We appreciate every piece of help. And I can't emphasize to you how much it makes a difference. It's kept us on air all these years. So, and I love being connected to you guys as our source of power. So TYT.com/join. All right, Anna, what's next?
Well, this next story, I'm sure, is gonna get people's dander up because of the people involved in it, but it's worth getting into. So without further ado, let's talk about Nick Fuentes on Tucker Carlson's podcast.
I tweeted at Ben Shapiro. I said, you know, I've never seen anything on the Daily Wire that's actually critical of Israel. And he quote tweets me. And at this time, I have 1,000 followers on Twitter. I don't know, I probably got 100 likes on this tweet. It wasn't a viral tweet. He quote tweets me and says, to accuse a Jew of dual loyalty is the surest sign of anti-Semitism.
But the second you're like, well, actually, it's the Jews. First of all, it's against my Christian faith. Like, I just don't believe that and I never will, period. And second, then it becomes a way to discredit. That's when I was like, this guy's a Fed. I'm sorry I called you gay, by the way. But I'm always, I think I'm just too old or something. I'm like, what? Why is anyone married?
Okay, we're gonna get to that last part with Tucker Carlson calling Nick Fuentes gay in just a moment. But first, I actually want to get to the more substantive parts of their discussion because I thought it was important for Tucker to talk about what he disagrees with Nick Fuentes on, because the fact of the matter is they might agree in regard to the influence, that undue influence that Israel has over our political system and our government. But I do think that there is a pretty significant distinction between how Tucker Carlson talks about Israel versus how Nick Fuentes, at least historically, has talked about Israel. So with that in mind, why don't we get to the first area of disagreement that they get into? And I want to get your thoughts right after, Cenk.
My Christian faith tells me that there's no such thing as blood guilt, and virtue or sin is not inherited. It's not a feature of DNA. So every person must be assessed individually as God assesses each person individually. And that's like a foundational view. So I always thought it's great to criticize and it's question like our relationship with Israel, because it's insane and it hurts us. We get nothing out of it. I completely agree with you there. But the second you're like, well, actually it's the Jews. First of all, it's against my Christian faith. Like, I just don't believe that, and I never will, period. And second, then it becomes a way to discredit. That's when I was like, this guy's a Fed. What I do think is bad, just objectively bad and destructive, is the all Jews are guilty or all anybody is guilty of anything, because that's just like not true. And we don't believe that as Christians. But I also think there's like a true, not just principle, but like spiritual reality that we have to defend, which is God created every person as an individual, not as a group. No woman gave birth to a community.
You know, aside from kind of shrouding it in religion and religious doctrine, in terms of my own values and morals, I totally agree with Tucker Carlson on this, right? I don't judge Jewish people as a group. When we're being critical of Israel, we are being critical of specific people and a specific ideology, an expansionist ideology that has led to so much pain, so much suffering, so much destruction and land theft in the Middle East. That is not inherent in a Jewish person, right? And so to blame all Jews or to engage in anti-Semitism, in my opinion, is not only gross, but it's nonsensical. So basically what you see Tucker Carlson doing there is kind of like differentiating the way he handles this issue from how he believes Nick Fuentes has talked about this issue. So we're gonna get the response from Fuentes in just a second, because he did defend himself. But before we do, Cenk, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, so the only people that, well, that's actually not true. Fuentes is one of the people. The two sets of people, and Tucker has said this before too. There's the Fuentes crowd that says the Jews are the responsible. At least historically, that's what he said. And then there's the pro-Israel crowd that says, no, Israel equals Jews, Jews equal Israel. The people criticizing Israel, the great majority of us, never say Jews because we don't mean Jews. And in fact, a lot of us are Jewish Americans, right? So why would we want to attack our own who are in favor of peace and decency, trying to stop a genocide, etc.? So we don't think like the bigots do. But a lot of the pro-Israel crowd, you have to remember, are deeply bigoted against Muslims. And they think it's okay to kill Muslims, it's no big deal. In fact, we should smear Muslims so it makes it easier for America to give us money to kill Muslims. So they assume everyone is as deeply hateful as they are. And then so they say, okay, so when you say you're criticizing Israel, that means you're criticizing Jews. No, it doesn't mean that at all. You just made that up. You said it, none of us said it, right? So that's point one. And Anna, to your point, look, I'm atheist, I'm a humanist. I find the idea that there's a difference between Palestinians and Israelis or any sets of people is so deeply irrational, I can't countenance it. If aliens landed and you said to them, okay, now those Palestinians and Israelis are dramatically different, they'd be like, bloop, 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 does not compete. They look exactly the same, they act the same, all these things, except for the fact that they hate each other and then all this conflict, and the Israelis are more powerful now. It's a power dynamic. It happens to all humans. It doesn't happen because they're Jewish. In this case, it's happening despite the fact that they're Jewish and have gone through it themselves culturally over and over again, where they were the victims. In this case, they are not the victims. So look, this stuff is clear to anyone who isn't trying to smear people on behalf of Israel. All right, so now, last thing on this for now is, if you criticize Tucker for having Fuentes on, I get it, we don't have Fuentes on. He said some really vile things, and so I understand the concern around that, right? But Anna, I read several articles today that never showed that clip or mentioned what you just showed us, right? Every single one of them said Tucker Carlson brought on Fuentes to share his anti-Semitic point of view. Wait, we just saw with our own eyes, that is nothing but a total lie. And Anna, as you know, this is a lie that they did to me. I had David Duke on to figure out what the hell's going on with this crazy right wing, and I called him an anti-Semite and a bigot and a racist to his face. And the mainstream media said I had David Duke on to share his anti-Semitic views. So yeah, James, there is a giant liar in this equation, and it's not the part of the media that constantly gets blamed.
I can't emphasize enough how toxic the trend of quick clips on X or Instagram, just the quick clips, how toxic that really is, because it really does take the context out of the discussion, and it paints a narrative that oftentimes isn't even accurate. And so that's why now producing this show is almost a Herculean task, because I'm not going to rely on a few clips I found on X. I want to watch the whole conversation and get a more holistic, perception of what the conversation was and what actually went down. So whatever, putting that aside for a second.
I'm just gonna add real quick, Anna. It's because almost all of media is lying. So then we all have to fact check every single thing that anyone else has ever said. And like in the old days, you thought New York Times at least wasn't lying. No, they're giant liars.
You can't, look, the buck has to stop with you if you're in the media. And we're overwhelmed. There's so much to do every day. And so I understand people relying on these shortcuts, just relying on the clips that like Aaron Rupar clipped out or some other rando on X. But you can't do that. You need to have the fuller context and really understand how the conversation went down. So you just heard Tucker's views and what his values are. Now, Nick Fuentes is going to defend himself. Let's hear what he has to say.
Not to be that guy and say that thing, but like, my best friend is a Jewish person. Clearly, the state of Israel and the neocons are deeply motivated by that ethnic identity, and their allegiance to Israel proceeds from that because of their unique heritage and story, which is that they're a stateless people. They're unassimilable. They resist assimilation for thousands of years, and I think that's a good thing. And now they have this territory in Israel. There's a deep religious affection for the state. It's bound up in their identity, the story of the Exodus from Egypt, the promise of the land, all these things. For the international Jewish community, they're extremely organized, and many of them are critical of Israel or Israel's current government or the project of Israel. But I guess what they have in common, unlike, let's say, like Singapore, for example, is that they have this international community across borders, extremely organized, that is putting the interests of themselves before the interests of their home country. And there's no other country that has a similar arrangement like that.
Okay, but to say that it's all like it's inherent in all Jews, like all Jews sign on to what's happening right now in Gaza, like it's just not true. It's literally not true. The most vocal critics of what Israel is doing right now happen to be Jewish. Okay, I mean, come on. You have Dave Smith, Katie Halper, Glenn Greenwald. The list goes on and on and on. There's so many.
Ben Cohen.
Robert Greenwald. Exactly. There are so many. And so, look, whenever you start making judgments about groups simply based on their heritage or their racial identity or what, you lose me entirely. because I think it is important to judge people as individuals as opposed to a collective, right? A collective that is based on immutable characteristics. And so I disagree with how Nick Fuentes comments on this issue, because he seems to have difficulty differentiating from people who have bought into an expansionist policy in the Middle East versus just Jews who criticize it, who are not co-signing onto it at all.
Yeah. So look, this is a topic where even having an intellectual conversation is career threatening, right?
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's totally uncomfortable.
Right. So let's, but I'm gonna do it anyway. So first of all, in terms of genetics, there's no difference between us. There's so much more variability within any race or religion than there is between the different races and religions. So I don't want to get too deep into the science of that, but to make an assumption based on someone's race or religion in terms of their hardware, their genetics, is just preposterous, comically ignorant, okay? So now, is there such a thing as culture that also affects us? Yes. Are there different forms of the culture? Yes. Are there positives and negatives within every culture? Yes, right? And I've talked about my own culture, Turkish culture originally, et cetera, and some of the wonderful upsides and some of the significant downsides, right? Now, you can say that about your own culture, you can say that about a lot of different cultures, but there's some cultures, if you say it about it, then you're gonna be driven from public life, and you're all these terrible names, and you're canceled, et cetera, right? So now, in the case of Jewish culture, I think, and I've said this a million times on the show, it has these beautiful parts to it, and I grew up in a town that was about half Jewish, and so I grew up in that culture and I loved it. You challenge the rabbi, you challenge authority, you stand up for the powerless. That's why the Jewish Americans were a huge part of the civil rights movement. I can go on and on. Is there a part of the culture that says we are perpetual victims? Yes. Is that because they have been perpetual victims throughout history? Yes. But does it make, is there a problem within that strand? My real opinion is, yeah, there is a problem, which is if you teach all your kids that the whole world hates you and you should be super protective of your people, and you should, and even preemptively so, because the whole world is gonna attack you at any moment and your life is constantly in danger. I think that that is not a positive thing to teach kids. Now, it's easy for me to say, I didn't grow up as someone who was Jewish, and they had all the pogroms and the Holocaust, et cetera. So I get it, I get the PTSD from all of that stuff. So now the last part of culture, Anna, is here we are in America. I don't know how Jewish folks are in Australia and Peru, et cetera, but here in America, there's a huge divide, and we can see it in the polling. And that's younger Jewish Americans and older Jewish Americans. So younger Jewish Americans are at this point more on the side of the Palestinians than they are of Israel. Like, I'm generalizing based on the polls that I've seen. But for example, earlier today, we talked about how 67% of Jewish voters under the age of 45 are backing Mamdani in the mayoral race in New York, okay, as an example. So why is there a divide between the older Jewish Americans and the younger ones? Because the older ones are closer to the PTSD of the Holocaust, of being stateless, of all these things that are legitimate concerns for Jewish folks throughout the world and throughout history, right? So they're much more protective of this idea of Israel and, oh my God, Israel, we got everything. They can't see clearly. No, Israel has nukes. Israel has Iron Dome. Israel has a bigger and more effective military than the entire Middle East combined. So it's a grown-up country now. Whereas younger Jewish Americans grew up as Americans. And so they were partly brainwashed. All cultures brainwashed. I was brainwashed as a Turk growing up. And by the way, against the Armenian genocide never happened. They were hiding behind their civilians. We were just moving them, et cetera. So this is not specific to Jews at all. Right? So when he generalizes about the Jews, it's absurd. It's absurd on genetic grounds, on demographic grounds, age, et cetera. But are there some folks in America that love Israel and love Israel more than they love this country and are more obsessed about it and spend tons of money on it and try to cancel people and fire anyone who would criticize Israel? Of course there are. If you say they aren't, you're definitely lying, and you have to look into why you're lying, right? So I don't agree with Fuentes. He's getting it wrong in an important way. But Tucker didn't agree with any of that.
No, he didn't. In fact, he also told Fuentes that anti-Semitism is actually very convenient for the bad faith actors who are seeking to essentially justify anything and everything that Israel is carrying out. So let's just hear how Fuentes responded to that.
I would just say I disagree. I mean, because you said the other day, they like me. I don't know what you're talking about when you say that. Because
I don't know.
Let me just kind of rebut that.
Well, by the way, I'm not saying you have anything to do with this. I'm just saying I've noticed the phenomenon.
Totally. And I just reject that because they have been messing with me for my entire adult life. I mean,
the
ADL got me banned on YouTube. The SPLC posted my house on their website. I mean, as far as the Jews are concerned, I think that, like I said, you cannot actually divorce Israel and the neocons and all of those things that you talk about from Jewishness, ethnicity, religion, identity.
Yeah, I'm 100% on Tucker's side. And by the way, for those who are critical of the expansionist project that's currently being carried out by Israel, and you are justified in being critical about that. It is not based on someone's immutable characteristics. It's not based on people's identity as Jewish people. It has everything to do with an ideology that is being carried out by a government, okay? That, by the way, is not just supported by Jewish individuals within Israel and maybe globally, but also, more importantly, evangelicals as well. So it's not about an identity, it's about an ideology. And that's what's important to me, because there's no one in the world who's gonna convince me to have hatred in my heart for Jewish people or Black people or gay people. For me, the ideology and the actions that individuals carry out is way more important to focus on. And what I can't stand is that people who understand that distinction and do not have malice or hatred in their hearts end up getting lumped together with those who do have malice and hatred in their hearts. And that was the point that Tucker Carlson was trying to make there.
Yeah, I gotta say the last two things here. First, it makes no sense to say the Jews or Jewishness, as Fuentes is saying. So wait, Dave Smith and Ben Shapiro disagree 100%. So which one represents the Jews? It just, you can't make sense out of that, right? And as we've said a million times on the show, look, we've got friends, family that are Jewish, and Mossad never called them, IDF never called them. They're physics professors. They're doing physics. They're not doing anything else. So like that, all of that is absurd. Now, on the other hand, with the Ben Shapiro's of the world, he says, oh, it's a dual loyalty trope, saying that we're loyal to Israel, and this has been going on for all of eternity. Israel started in 1948. How could it have been going on for eternity? So I feel like sometimes they're planting the pro-Israel guys are planting these so-called tropes around so that anything triggers them, and then you're canceled forever for criticizing Israel in a super convenient way. And they say the dual loyalty thing, and then they say Mamdani is actually loyal to jihadi terrorists and not America. Wait, isn't that the dual loyalty trope? And in a much more vicious and bigoted way, and based on absolutely nothing? So apparently you don't mind the dual loyalty trope. You just mind if anyone criticizes Israel, you like that you get to use that newfound trope to criticize them. So guys, this is super simple. The only people who don't get it are the neo-Nazis and the dumbass mainstream media that work for Israel, okay? Jews and Israel are not the same thing. We love Jewish Americans, they're our brothers and sisters, and we always protect them. And Israel is a foreign government that is committing a genocide, and we've got to get them to stop. Easy, I solved it.
All right, we're obviously massively out of time. There were other elements of the conversation that maybe I'll get into tomorrow, but for now, we got to take our last break, and we'll see what we'll have time for when we come back.
All right, let's go to TYT.com members. Jack Callahan said that episode with Anna last night was no different than Piers Morgan. Conservative hacks not allowing anybody to speak a whole sentence. Anna was great and should be paid hazard pay. Has anybody thought of having a real conversation? No, they can't because they're all talking in talking points. That's why Anna's confounding them. They're like, wait, Gavin Newsom, you're criticizing him. You're supposed to have a pro-Democrat talking point. Why are you thinking for yourself? That's it, I'm talking over her. Okay, although that's the one time the conservatives didn't talk over her. But when she gets to Israel, oh my God, they all jump in. Don't let her say anything, don't let her say anything. Okay, I got it, dude. You guys are all bought. I got it. It's super obvious. I got it. You love Israel because they pay you cold hard cash. I got it. Anyways, Anna's gonna be on CNN again tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern. Make sure you're checking it out. All right, Rebel Dragon says, after all the outrage over Kirk's death, how come we aren't hearing anything about the perpetrator? What's going on with this trial? I mean, that's what Anna was referring to that earlier. It's a great question. They could just be getting ready for it. Panic on Funkatron says, it's obvious that the FBI did a crappy investigation. Kyle Kulinski covers all the inconsistencies pretty well. That's good. I had a conversation with Kyle and Crystal about this too, and you can check that out. I'm glad Kyle's covering that. Don Donna Dragon says, I don't buy the official narrative. Kirk dying came at the height of Trump's Epstein woes. He was very recently a detractor from the Israeli lobby. There's more reason for Israel to kill him than there is for some random Utah kid. Imagine if Kirk said Israel is indiscriminately killing. How could they spin Kirk was woke? It's like saying Tucker is woke. But by the way, that's literally what they're saying now. So no. Look, I don't know if that's perfectly persuasive, and we really don't know what happened. But no, there is nothing that the Israeli crowd won't say. Yeah, they're saying that Tucker Carlson is woke right. Okay, yeah. No. Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro are real MAGA, and Tucker Carlson's fake MAGA. Okay, whatever gets you through the night, right? So they think they're going to trick people with that propaganda. God, man, they don't realize what's happening. Nostra Science says Candace Owens' mystery mongering on the Charlie Kirk murder is mystery mongering. People exaggerate their significance in the moment or don't fully appreciate what is happening or remember it the same way. Sign language at a speech, so you send a message to security to move, but don't yell it out. Nostra Science, you might be entirely right. I don't know. Well, this is interesting. I'll read this one blind. Nerdfreaks, first of all, I'll do this one first. TYT, we watch Tucker and Candace so you don't have to. I don't know that I want that to be our slogan, but okay, fair. So this is the one that I'm reading blind. Pessimistic Progressive says, Cenk, I watched your interview about Plattner on Mehdi's show, and when the argument about not experience comes up, it got me thinking that's just an excuse for DC not being able to corrupt a person yet. They don't want outsiders with fresh ideas. They want someone they've been able to get their hooks into for a few years at least. They could care less about their experience. 100%. Think about what an obvious lie that is. They have experience doing what? What corporate Democrats have done what with all their experience? Nothing. Oh, you have a lot of experience in being corrupt and doing nothing. Wow, can I get more of that? No, experience is generally a terrible thing in this day and age of massive corruption. So when you hear them saying that, it's nothing but a trick. Itchy Brother Dragon on Twitch says, Anna looking spectacular. Michael Graham saying Harris is so bad in interviews, it's amazing from Kamala Harris. Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna, more news.
Let's get to our next story.
He said, I have people ended up leaving Saudi Arabia because in this age, silence is not enough. You have to publicly celebrate the crown prince or the like. If you live in an environment like that, in which it's easy we're in California and we're talking about Gaza, talking about the US, talking about Europe, talking about shift in public opinion. Freely, the idea that somebody could barge into that door, grab us both and make us disappear is something that we think is ludicrous. We are privileged in our rights that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has afforded us in allowing us to speak out. I'm not making excuses. I'm saying let's put yourself in that situation.
What's sadly incredibly ironic is what you just heard Sami Hamdi, a journalist, say in the latest podcast appearance. was something that he himself experienced firsthand because he was detained by ICE on Sunday at the San Francisco International Airport. Now, why? Why would ICE detain him? Was he doing something illegal? Was he doing something that's against our Constitution, maybe? No, it turns out that he is a critic and a very outspoken critic of a foreign country. And of course, that's the nation state of Israel. And as a result, this British journalist and media commentator who's been outspoken about Israel was detained. Now, he's also been featured on Sky News, and he's the managing director of International Interest, which provides analysis on geopolitical environments and risks. Now, Hamdi had been on a speaking tour in the United States, according to the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, a Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization. He attended the organization's annual gala on Friday night in Sacramento and was scheduled to speak at a gala in Florida on Sunday night. But of course, that didn't end up happening because he ended up getting detained. Department of Homeland Security spokeswoman Tricia McLaughlin announced his detention on Sunday, adding that his visa had also been revoked. So here's what she wrote. Thanks to the work of Secretary Noem and Secretary Marco Rubio, and the men and women of law enforcement, this individual's visa was revoked and he is in ICE custody pending removal for committing the grave sin of criticizing Israel, the country that apparently controls our government. Let me give you the rest of her statement. Under President Trump, those who support terrorism? Oh, just to be clear, Hamdi does not support Israel. So let's just be clear about that. Those who support terrorism and undermine American national security will not be allowed to work or visit this country. It's common sense. Now, if you want to talk about the security and safety of Americans, we can have a conversation about the American citizens that have been slaughtered by IDF soldiers and Israeli settlers in the West Bank. But of course, the lives of those Americans don't matter at all. In fact, this isn't really about protecting the national security of Americans. This is really about punishing a British journalist who is accurately and critically, who's accurate about Israel and covers what Israel is currently carrying out in a critical fashion. And to be clear, he does not support terrorism, nor has he actually committed a crime. Hamdi's father says it best on X, writing in a post, Sammy did not commit any crime and did not lie in a single word when he condemned the Israeli crimes in Gaza, the crimes of genocide, and when he condemned the US government's support for this unjust and barbaric Israeli behavior. And I agree with that. Now, in his latest appearance on the Thinking Muslim podcast, he directly went after Zionists in government and how they're losing power. Take a look.
Donald Trump is not necessarily beholden to the rules that the Zionists imposed on presidents of the past. That doesn't mean he's an ally of the Palestinians or he cares. It means that before, the Palestinians who had very limited influence over the White House, because the Zionists had a huge influence over the White House, now suddenly the Zionists don't have that influence that they once had before. Every citizen of any country who loves his country, who loves her country, who wants to see the benefit of their country, anybody who loves their country will vote for the one who puts their country first and not a foreign country first. Homelessness in LA, where we didn't go to Beverly Hills, I should have shown you Beverly Hills itself. You'll see all these tents that are in these parking areas, and they're not hippies, they're homeless people that you could have the money to resolve it, but you're giving it to Zionists and the like who are insisting on Israel first. The midterm elections are not Democrats versus Republicans. The midterm elections will be Israel first versus America first, and it's in the interest of Muslim Americans that America first wins over Israel first. Genocide is impossible without American money being spent, without American weapons, without American support, without American diplomatic cover. It's impossible. If the Americans say the Israelis can't do it, they can't do it.
And I don't think anyone will be surprised to find that the likes of Laura Loomer and other Israel first people here in the United States are the ones who essentially decided to sic DHS on Hamdi. And so DHS did what DHS does best. They detained a critic of Israel And so now his visa has been revoked, and he will eventually be sent back, to the UK. But this is absolute madness, Cenk.
Yeah, he's obviously a political prisoner. So Israel has now taken a political prisoner inside America. So first of all, we have First Amendment right. Everybody here, not just citizens. The Supreme Court has ruled that for over 200 years to freedom of speech. Now we have to put an asterisk on the First Amendment and say you are allowed to say anything you want about America, our government, our politicians, or any other government, asterisk, unless it's Israel, in which case you'll be arrested and you'll be put in a ICE detention center or some other detention center. And only when our rulers, our occupiers, Israel, allow us, will we release you. But other than that, from now on, we take political prisoners for a different country here in America, and we violate our own constitution for a different country. Those are inarguable facts. So, well, they say, what? Well, they said the magic word terrorism. Well, that ought to solve it. No, what I realize now is that pro-Israel forces inside America have been trying to get Americans to hate Muslims, and they have spread bigotry against Muslims and called almost all Muslims who object to Israel terrorists my whole life. They're actually the worst bigots in the country, and they've driven great fear and hatred towards the Muslim community. And now they're saying, not good enough. We smeared them, we got everybody to hate them. We did the most vicious, bigoted campaign in the history of this. Well, you can't say in the history of this country, to be fair. Unfortunately, we've had a couple, right? But certainly the worst of my lifetime against Muslims. But now we're gonna take away their freedom, and we're gonna take away the Constitution, and we're gonna take away American sovereignty. And you just saw those clips. Actually, Sami Hamdi didn't say anything against America. He was actually fighting for America first. He was fighting for American sovereignty. He didn't do a single thing against America, but he had the temerity to challenge almighty Israel. So does Israel control our government? Inarguably. You could say, hey, that hurts my feelings that they do in one direction or another. I don't want you to telling everyone, even though it is the most obvious fact. No one has ever been arrested here in America for criticizing Norway or Russia or China or Paraguay. The only country that anyone has ever been arrested for criticizing is Israel. So that is a 100% fact. They can call you an anti-Semite, they can say trope, they can say anything they want. It doesn't matter, it's not going to change that fact. So America, you gotta decide, are you okay with Israel taking political prisoners inside this country? And do you think that once you've trashed the First Amendment and the Constitution on behalf of Israel, that they're gonna stop at people with visas? No, they're gonna come for you next. In fact, they're already coming for you in different ways. We shared a story about a friend of mine who runs a company. Now, Israeli bots and trolls are demanding that he fire American workers who have not just criticized Israel, they haven't even criticized Israel, that have shown sympathy towards the Palestinians. They're saying this is an anti-Semite, you have to destroy this American's life, you have to take away their livelihood, make sure that they are destroyed on behalf of Israel. And so they're coming for everyone here who dares to not bow their head to Israel. So no, release the political prisoners. By the way, Mohammed Ibrahim is a 16-year-old American child, is in an Israeli gulag now with trumped up nonsense charges. Our government won't even fight. We have a hashtag Free Our Child that we're trying to get to Marco Rubio through the Revolution program we're doing. No, Marco Rubio doesn't care. He's already been bribed to the tune of $5 million from Larry Ellison, $1 million from the Israeli lobby. Those are just the facts we know, let alone the dark money and the other super PACs. So Marco Rubio doesn't work for us. Our government doesn't work for us. They prove it over and over again. They're arresting people on behalf of a different government. That is totally unacceptable, and it's not even close. So at this point, I love this country and I love our Constitution, and I'm just trying to protect us. And by us, I mean all Americans. I don't want to be ruled by Israel. I don't. And if you want to call me an anti-Semite because I don't want to be ruled by Israel, have at it, Hoss. And you're going to do it anyway. You've already done it thousands of times. You'll do it thousands of times. And now they're doing it to all Americans. Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Dave Smith, me, Anna, everyone, and left, right, center, libertarian, it doesn't matter. You all have to, and by the way, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, atheist, it doesn't matter. You all have to bow your heads to Almighty Israel. And if you don't, your life is going to be ruined, pulverized by pro-Israeli forces inside our government. We have to actually elect someone who grabs these guys metaphorically, not literally, metaphorically by the ear and walks them out of the goddamn building and go, no, 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 no. From now on, there's only one country you're loyal to if you're working inside the American government, and that's the America. You try to be loyal to another country and you're gonna have massive consequences. We should start arresting people for being spies and for being assets and agents, because these people are clearly not working for us. A foreign government is occupying us, and now they're taking political prisoners inside the country. Totally unacceptable.
All right, that does it for me. Cenk, you're gonna have to do Operation Joy without me today. But thank you, everybody. I'll be back in studio tomorrow, as long as my flight doesn't get delayed, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, so everybody check out Anna at 10 o'clock tonight. Could be fireworks, Bakari Sellers is on, other folks that we disagree with. That's the ones on the left, let alone the ones on the right. So check that out tonight, 10 o'clock on CNN. I'm gonna come right back, and while she is sometimes spreading rage in a beautiful, awesome way, we're gonna spread a little bit of joy, so stay right here. All right, guys. So normally after the show, we're doing the revolution, right? But on Tuesdays, we're stuck with Operation Joy. If you're unfamiliar with it, you're about to get a little bit of joy in your life, we hope. As usual, before Operation Joy, I'm gonna read a couple of quick comments. And then after Operation Joy, I'm gonna give you a story. I don't know if you're gonna be joyous about it or puzzled by it. But for the members, for the shorter members only portion we're doing, I'm telling personal stories now. And I'm gonna tell you the strangest story about this game we used to play when I was a kid called Kuchida Muchida. And what in the world is Kuchida Muchida? You're gonna find out if you remember. Hit the join button if you can, or tyt.com/join. All right, so first a couple of quick comments left over from the show. Super chat, James Kelly said, love you guys and always trust you guys for the truth. I just saw an odd article about an update on Tyler Robinson. He was given permission to wear regular clothes while he's on trial. Is that weird? I don't know if that's weird. I wouldn't sweat that one too much. But thank you for the kind words about us. FN Clips, thanks for joining. We appreciate you. They just joined on YouTube. Cypher K. Ross is proud of Anna. She came out swinging, tactfully stepped back and brought it home in the last bit of that 8-minute clip that I saw. By the way, I'm not even sure if you're talking about her take or CNN or Piers Morgan or Young Turks, but I love that she's out there. Hashtag send Anna. Octa Squiddy says, Anna and I don't always agree, but I always enjoy when she metaphorically bitch slaps liberals on national TV. Well, here, that gives all of us joy. And so you might see more of that tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern on CNN. Okay, look at me doing promos for CNN. Hey, they have a progressive voice on there, a populist voice, okay? It's just a truthful voice, an honest voice. So I always give credit where credit is due, it's just they rarely earn it. All right, so now guys, we tell you stories about that people wrote in through tyt.com/joy, and they're sharing their joy. And every time it makes me happy. I hope it does the same for you. I want you to write in with stories of joy right now, and I'll try to read those before this episode is over. And then on top of that, I want to tell you about some, if we have time, I hope we do, some introspection that I've done recently about my youth. Interesting. Okay, but first, let's start with Unicorn Dragon. So they wrote in, my joy was volunteering with my 17-year-old at Diwali event this past Sunday. To see so many people of all different backgrounds coming out for the festival, the happy faces of so many children, it was wonderful. And the food was so amazing. Sorry, no pictures, my hands were full holding food. They continue, I work at a public library and often take the homeless library training services provided by Ryan Dowd. He ran a large homeless shelter and is a wonderful human being. I've learned so much from him. This morning I got his weekly email blast and it said, in the face of oppression, joy is resistance. Oh, I love that. I've been saying it's the same thing. Happiness is a form of resistance, a form of defiance, and if you will, a form of revolution. You want us to all be bitter and hate and be filled with fear and hatred and loathing? How about we don't? How about we're filled with joy and use that as defiance? Well, they continue, people find joy in the midst of suffering. It's not a betrayal of the seriousness of suffering to find joy. In fact, it's essential. Joy's oxygen to the human spirit. This was so well said and it touches me deeply. I thought it's perfect for Operation Joy, and just to know that there are so many people doing their meaningful work day in and day out, it gives me hope. Well, I love that. That is exactly right. That's the perfect spirit of Operation Joy. I also wanted to say the Diwali event. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, it's a South Asian event. Indians do it, and it's a festival as they describe. Been to it a bunch of times, love it. Look, this is where I part ways with the populist right. I love the diversity of America. I mean, easy for me to say because I'm part of the diversity, but I'm not just talking about my diversity. If I was like the whitest, most Christian dude on planet Earth, I would still love that there are Indians and Chinese and Koreans and Russians and Jews and Muslims and Nigerians and Serbs and all of these different folks that came here to this country to be together and to work together and to be equal together. I can't get enough of that. And I love learning from other people's cultures. Why wouldn't you want to? It gives you strength, it gives you knowledge, gives you information, it gives you access to different perspectives. These are all definitely helpful. So I love that you did that. I love that you took your kid, and the story about, of course, the homeless advocate is perfect. Okay, Zane the Magic Puffer Dragon writes, enjoy was getting to finally see my 5 kids on October 6th after not seeing them since July 14th. So after nearly 3 months of not being able to see them or even call them, we had so much fun together, and my 3 girls, 11, 10, and 3, all did their nails and they played with Play-Doh, and my eldest daughter made Cookie Monster, and so did my youngest son, LOL. Only he gets legs and arms that time. And then included a picture. Indeed, I see it. I see the Cookie Monster, super fun. And then added, I can't wait to see them again soon on November 10th of this year. I'm so excited about it. Anyone have any suggestions on what the 6 of us can do or make for the 2 hours of my visitation? I'm seriously looking for something that would entertain my 17-year-old son, 11-year-old daughter, 10-year-old daughter, and 7-year-old son and 3-year-old daughter. Please help me find something affordable to do with my awesome kids next month. So by the way, if you've got suggestions for Zane, send them in now, and I'll try to read either that or any other stories of joy that you guys have. All right, so let me keep going then. Then I have PYT4TYT, that's a fun handle. They write in, my joy this week, this idea coming into my head a week ago, and I couldn't let it go even though we have another costume for Halloween altogether. Those baby curls won't be there forever, and luckily a thrifted girl's jacket turned vest and a dress turned cloak, some scissors and sewing made it come alive. You're about to see what she's referring to. My joy was not only being able to capture these photos of my son, Indy as Frodo, Lord of the Rings being one of my all-time favorite books and movie series, but also getting my creative juices flowing again. I'm working on finding time for me to be creative, and I feel like my best self so I could be the best mom for him and partner to my husband, who, while not nearly as nerdy as me, played along as Aragorn. First of all, that's awesome that you're into it. I love how nerdy you are about it, and I think your husband is lucky in that regard, and I like that he played along with you, and that's great. And there's Indy as Frodo. Come on, Come on. That's what we call precious. See, there's goodness in the world. Indy exists. And Indy is having fun as Frodo. There's goodness in the world. I love it. Okay, thank you guys for bringing me joy. That's beautiful. All right, I got one more for you guys that wrote in. And by the way, you guys can write in or read others at tyt.com/joy anytime in the week. tyt.com/joy, and write in now with any stories that you might have. All right, let me go to one true coffee dragon. Two little joys today. One is my 7-year-old daughter who just started journaling. It began with a letter that she wrote to herself after having a hard couple of days at school and at home. She wrote, "Dear Anzu, sometimes you do bad things and other people can be bad too, but you are not a bad person. My little girl is growing up so fast and I'm here for it." A super precious story. I have a thought about that in a second. But she continues, "The other is my son who decided to cheer everybody up by drawing faces on all the oranges. He made one for each of us and then a few more and finished with a last one for his late great grandmother. So quote, she won't be lonely. And yes, that is a slice of milquetoast with breakfast." So she included the pictures of the breakfast, which looks lovely, with the orange in the background there. God, that breakfast looks good. And then all the smiling oranges as well. Okay, love it. So guys, here I'll do a little bit of introspection because it goes along with that story pretty well, and then I'll read your comments from today. See, look, there's, what is it? Anzu's a little 7-year-old, right? That's what I thought. Even she's got it in her head that she sometimes does bad things. Because you know how I was talking earlier about hardware and software, and you hear me talking about that, especially in this segment more. So hardware is who you are genetically, that's your DNA, that's your code. So for example, I did a lot of introspection and figured out I'm a guy who likes to solve things. It doesn't mean I solve it right, but I try really hard to solve things. Like with politics, it took me a while to figure out what was happening. And you guys, if you're from the old days, and we've been around 23 years, and a lot of you have been with us for a long time. In the beginning, I wasn't positive that it was money in politics, but the more we went on and the more stories we covered, it became crystal clear. There's no question, the problem is money in politics. That is the cancer that is creating all other problems. Now, that's why when today on the show, we showed I've Had It podcast, and they're saying we've solved it. It's the corruption, it's the money in politics. That's what's making the Democratic leadership so incompetent and not fight for us. I'm like, yes, yes, yes. That's exactly what we've been saying, right? So I'm a solver. Again, it doesn't mean I'm right. It means I just try to solve things. And I'm a sharer. So, and both of those things get me in trouble because then I'll come out with a bold declaration. Why? Because I like to share. And I'll say, I solved it, right? I think it's money in politics. And then people go, boo, how dare you try to solve anything? You're terrible. How dare you say that you figured it out? Boo, we hate you. Did you guys do that? No, you're here, right? But a lot of people do that. And it's not just in public. Honestly, it's in my personal life. And okay, so that's the hardware. Then there's the software, the culture that we learn. And in Turkish culture, there's this thing called ayıp. It mainly means shame, okay? And everything in Turkish culture is ayıp. If you go to somebody's house and you don't do exactly what they say, ayıp. If someone comes to your house and you don't do exactly as they say, ayıp. There's no winning with ayıp. Everything is ayıp, everything is shame. So that got burned into my head. And this is not a thing about my parents, it's just everyone in Turkish culture, ayıp, 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 right? And remember how I was saying every culture, including my own, has downsides. This is one of the downsides of Turkish culture. Everything, you should live in eternal shame over every single thing you've ever done. And that gets into kids' heads, right? So, and then especially with the nature that I have, I go out and I say, okay, I think I solved something. I want to share it with you guys. Or I did, oh God forbid. I mean, I'm oversharing here, but that's kind of the point of this. If I got a good test, a good grade on a test, I'd run home and tell folks, family and friends, I didn't realize how big a mistake that was for years and years. Because people hate it when you tell them that. And if you're out there, you gotta be like, Cenk, you schmuck, how long did it take you? I mean, you get good grades, but we're such a schmuck you couldn't figure out. Don't tell people Of course, if you go around telling people you got an A or God forbid an A+, they'll hate you. Okay, and that's what happened when I was a kid for a long time. So you learn the hard way. But anyway, the introspection led me to realize we're all beating ourselves up way too much. You got that ayip in your head for in a million different ways. And that's why Anzu writes a note at 7. She's worried about her ayip, right? The different things she did that's so wrong. Look, we've got to, of course, train our kids. That's the reality of life, right? And we hope that we're training them in a positive direction, because otherwise we're all animals, and so you civilize them. And again, there's a lot of goodness in that, tons and tons of goodness in that. But please be careful not to put thoughts in your kids' heads about how half the things they're doing or 3/4 of the things they're doing are all wrong, and they should feel shame and guilt over it. God, that's a way that we use to control one another. And there are places where it's helpful, like, hey, don't be so selfish and get everyone else in trouble. You should feel a little bit of guilt over that, right? That's why guilt exists. But man, do we overuse it. I mean, we nuke kids, we nuke each other with guilt and shame and all these terrible things. So that's why part of what I want to do here is, why don't we nuke each other with joy and credit? My nephew Haas, he had a nickname for me, the accreditator, okay? And yeah, that's a made up word. And he said, look, you like to give yourself credit, but you also give a lot of other people credit. You're constantly giving people credit. And I was pretty observant of him. And I like giving people credit. It makes them happy. It makes me happy that they're happy. And they earned it. If they earned the credit, why not give it to them? What are you holding it back for? Make them feel good. There's no reason not to make them feel good. Unfortunately, we're in a profession where I don't get to give credit a lot to politicians and the media. I wish I could. That's why whenever there's an opportunity, I've had a podcast, Abby Phillip as a host on CNN, whoever else it might be, I'm like, yes, credit, please take the credit. All right, so that's my little bit of introspection. Does that stuff help you? I don't know. Write in and tell me. Maybe it's a waste of time, maybe it helps a little bit. But I try. I get caught trying. All right, Burrito Bandito writes in, my joy is TYT. Well, you're lovely to say that, thank you. Don't Shoot, I'm the Goalkeeper says, my joy for today is earlier today watching my football club go from almost losing a German Cup match in the last few minutes of extra time to winning a penalty shootout in less than 10 minutes. Okay, being a sports fan, I know that joy greatly. Unfortunately, I haven't felt it in a while. God, my teams with their miraculous loss after miraculous loss this year, it's driving me crazy. So I would love to feel the joy that you felt earlier today. It's sports, it'll go around. So, but it's been rough a little bit. Anyways, that's a good one. And it always makes me remember that German chant at a soccer match that scared the bejesus out of me. The one for Dresden's club, where they literally walk within the stadium, they march within their seats, and we won't be able to pull it up enough in time. But some of you that watch old school, you've seen it a couple of times, where they're like, Ost, Ost, Ost Deutschland, and then the whole stadium is rocking, going, Ost, Ost, Ost Deutschland. I'm like, no, don't kill anyone. But the Germans, they do get animated, especially about soccer. Okay. I did do it accidentally. Pessimistic Progressive says, precious, I see what you did there, Cenk. Even if you did it by accident, probably. I said that when I was talking about Indy, the little kid with the Frodo outfit. And no, I didn't think of precious, because I wouldn't want to put that on Indy. No, I meant precious in the other way. But good catch. Bigger picture, Aysen. This weekend, my family and I conducted a burial at sea for my Nina at Pismo Beach. I haven't seen my family in so many years. Our Hispanic family is now full of diverse folks from all walks of life, and I love it. Even my MAGA brother was such a joy to hang out with. Just a little political talk, but a whole bunch of happy times. I love my family, that's beautiful. So that's another thing that a lot of our cultures share, right? The Italians and the Turks and the Greeks are nearly inseparable, or indistinguishable, I should say, when it comes to love of family. constantly hugging, smiling, laughing, squeezing cheeks, etc. But very similar to Latino culture as well. And now I know bigger picture is Hispanic. Don't shoot, I'm the goalkeeper. I knew you were LGBTQ. I didn't know you were a trans man until today. Okay, so I'm finding out things about you guys. All right, and yeah, that family love sounds beautiful. Centex 1965 says, that's why I like seeing them on these shows. Brings people here one at a time. Well, that's look, that's part of the reason we're going on other shows. We're trying to spread our message. The real economic populism is here. Authentically looking out for fellow Americans is here. And I don't mean here as in just the Young Turks. I mean left-wing economic populism. Bernie Sanders 2016, currently Ro Khanna and others, right? Nina Turner and others. So that's because if you just have the Democratic establishment pick another corporate robot, we're gonna lose to right-wing populism. And right-wing populism has some good sides and some scary sides, okay? Left-wing populism is the populism you actually want. Economic populism, where we deliver for you guys and all of you guys, not just some of you guys, and not foreign governments and not corporations. That's it, it's official. I'm calling it Americans first. I've told you that a couple of times already, but now I'm dead set on it. Okay, that'll show them, okay? Anyways, Centex 1965 also wrote in, I see so many intelligent and good messages on here from people. It gives me some hope, at least every other day. The other days I feel despair and want to run far and fast. So I hear you, but that's another thing we're trying to do here, which is, guys, if you get depressed and you go, oh my God, the world is ending and that's it, it's gonna be authoritarian rule, you're not gonna be animated enough to get up and do something about it. Because if you sit on your couch, we're doomed. If you participate in the revolution episodes we're doing, I mean, these guys have built amazing websites overnight. I knew you guys could do it. So come join something productive and something that gives you hope, something that gives you a little bit of joy in the world. And I mean, look at me, guys. No one's more upset about what's happening in Gaza than I am. And you see the rage that I have. And that's real. I mean, you can't, it's all way too real and authentic, right? Sweaty tooth, madman and all. But at the same time, I can still have joy, as one of the earlier messages said. Because if you get depressed, it's not gonna help you, it's not gonna help Gaza, it's not gonna help your fellow Americans get lower drug prices, it's not gonna help anyone, right? So don't feel guilty about it. There is no ayup in feeling joy from time to time, even if you fight on super serious issues with serious consequences. All right, Jungle says, as a YouTube member, Cenk, make an episode on Turkish food. The person who'd be better to do that, better equipped to do that is actually Anna than me, because Armenian and Turkish food is very similar, and I suck at cooking, so I couldn't possibly tell you what's in them. I can just tell you how delicious they are. All right, let's go back to TYT.com. Big ol' a-hole, brother, you gotta change your name. I'm gonna call you Big ol' from now on, that's all. Anyways, or don't change it, I'll just call you Big ol'. It says, for Zayn the Magic Puffer Dragon, make oobleck. And I would try tinfoil rockets. There are also other easy science stuff you can do, and that's wicked cheap, and the younger kids should like it. I was the kid's house in the ghetto, and they all loved stuff like that. Can't help with the 17-year-old though. That's funny, I like how you kept it real at the end. Okay, good advice for Zayn, I like it. And then Care for One Another wrote in, Cenk, I've only been watching TYT for a few months now, so maybe I missed the story. I wonder what made you want to do good in this world. You seem like a pretty passionate, positive person. I wonder if you were always that way, or was there a moment when you decided to move in that direction? Well, all right, so I'll end on this. My sister's a wonderful person, and she reminded me when I started going through a lot of introspection over the last 5-6 years. She said, you know, Cenk, you fight against injustice now, right? But you've been doing that ever since you were a kid. And I was like, really? And me and my sister used to fight more when we were kids. So I was surprised that she thought that all the way back then. And I said, why? She's like, I remember it used to really bother you if somebody was doing something to a smaller kid and you'd step in, and then she gave a couple other examples, etc. And it did, and I think part of it, brother, or I'm sorry, I don't know if it's brother or sister, is that I had plenty of bad tendencies in me too, like any human, right? So like I like to get into fights. I've told this story many times. And so that's not productive. So I learned, I could turn that into something productive. I could become a middle linebacker in football, and that way I could hit people and get credit for it. And people go, "Atta boy, way to smash that guy into the ground." I'm like, this is a sport tailor-made for me. I'm passionate, I'm aggressive, I wanna be some sort of, like I have this instinct to be some sort of warrior, right? And it's not necessarily a good instinct, but I did the best I could in turning it in a direction that is more positive. And same for what I do for a living. Like a lot of people do this for money, fame, status. Oh God, status is a huge one. I've turned down status a million times, and people are obsessed with status. When I was a host on MSNBC, oh my God, people treated me so differently. I mean, it was night and day. I was an online host, then I become a host of MSNBC at 6 o'clock Eastern, right? And all of a sudden I'm winning award after award, and everybody's like, "Oh, we're so proud of you, we know it all along." I go back into online media, I turn down the job offer at MSNBC, I go back to online media, nobody's proud anymore, that's it. They were only proud in that window when you had status, right? So, but I get a lot of satisfaction out of helping people. And I think a lot of us do. That's why so many of the stories that are written in through tyt.com/joy or live when we do this segment are about helping others. Whether it's your kids, whether it's your family, or it's strangers. Not just that, but that's a big part of it. In fact, I was surprised by how often that came up in Operation Joy. And then it made me realize, yeah, no, that's part of why I do it. When I make someone happy, I'm kind of an empath, it bounces back on me. When I make someone upset, that also bounces back on me. So then it's a deeply ironic job that I have, because a lot of times I have to upset people. And I'm kind of glad they're not in the room. In the room, I feel it more, right? But I'm in a job that has a ton of conflict, but I'm trying to take that conflict and drive it in a positive direction. Fight against injustice, fight for the powerless, fight for the little guy, fight for the average guy. If you're gonna fight, you might as well fight for the right reasons, and you might as well try to improve people's lives so they feel better and you feel better. And in a sense, it's partly selfish. I don't like it when people are suffering. It causes harm to me, right? I feel that we're all connected. All of humanity is connected. That's why, again, the whole thing about like anti-Semitic, are you crazy, man? No, I think all humans are connected to one another. I would never want harm coming to Jewish Americans or Jews anywhere, or anyone anywhere. All of our fights are so silly. In Pakistan and India, Hindu or Muslim, who cares? Who cares? Come on, guys, of course it doesn't matter. Same thing in Myanmar, same thing in China, same thing, unfortunately, in Gaza and Israel. So no, I wish everybody would cut that crap out. But in a world filled with injustice, I decided to use my assets, my skill set of being able to yell louder than other people towards what I hope is good, what I really, really hope is good. And nobody has a monopoly on that, obviously. All I could do is get caught trying. So if you want to try along with us and you want to have a little bit of hope and a little bit of joy, I love it. And I'm super happy to be an outlet for that. And if I could be a little bit of a voice for that, oh my God, then that's a great honor. All right, guys, so the super last thing, because it's an important question and I don't want it to be self-aggrandizing. I'm kind of telling you is, some people love status, fame, money, power, whatever, all that stuff, right? And I get it, it's superhuman, it's very, very normal to get validation from those, to enjoy the accolades that people get. And there's other people who get pleasure from many other things. I deeply enjoy helping people. So that's why I'm saying, ironically, I should get a little bit less credit, right? It's just a thing I happen to like doing. So that's why I do it. The other guy's being selfish in this way, I'm being selfish in that way. So anyways, all right, well, you're wonderful for saying that in the first place. All right, guys, no old school tonight, but I want you to have a great night. Oh, the members, stay right here. I have one more story for you guys from my youth. I remembered what Kuchida Muchida was, okay? And what is that? It's a game we made up, and it's mental, absolutely mental. So what we're gonna do now is, members, you stay right here. Everybody else, we're gonna lose you, but we love you. We'll see you tomorrow. Okay, members. So when I was a kid, I told you I used to wrestle the kids way too much, very physical, aggressive, etc. Nothing I could do about it.